listener, and welcome to another episode of We Read It One Night, the podcast where two sisters invite you to join the romance revolution by bringing you the next book that will make you want to stay up all night reading. This week, we're discussing the brilliant Colleen Hoover's Ugly Love, a book that punched us to the gut and then gave us a warm hug afterward. If that sounds impossible, keep listening to find out how Colleen totally rocked our worlds. Enjoy the show!
I'm drinking Gatorade. It's very good.
I saw that.
It's an act of personal rebellion for me.
Drinking Gatorade?
Yes, because of the huge stigma that is like always in the back of my head about how like soda and like sugary drinks are like the devil. It's like drilled into me from such a young age. And yet there's nothing better than like a real Coke. And yet like I can never drink it because it's like that's like the biggest taboo that's been drilled into me from a young age. So anyway, I rebelled by buying a 6-pack of Gatorade.
Since when is Gatorade in like the unhealthy drinks category?
What do you
Gatorade
mean?
is like what the sports bros drink. I understand that it is objectively like filled with sugar, but Gatorade does not have the same perception as soda. Absolutely
Gatorade
not.
has almost the same amount of sugar, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, again, but Gatorade doesn't have the same perception of soda. It's not in the same category. No way. It's like the sportsman.
A 12-ounce Coca-Cola has 39 grams of sugar. This 20-ounce Gatorade has 34 grams of sugar. So that's a little less, but like
a little less per, also
it's
a lot less per.
No, not that much.
It's
no,
12.
I know. I'll do the ratio.
12 ounces versus 20.
I will do the ratio. It's 3.3 versus 1.7 grams per ounce.
So half, nearly half.
Still a lot though.
Sure, but it has half the sugar of a Coke.
Maybe.
Per fluid ounce.
Maybe. Whatever. It's a sugar, whatever. Don't undermine me here.
You're wrong.
Don't undermine me.
I don't know where you got that the idea that like Gatorade was in the same category as sodas.
It just is.
I always felt a little bit like ashamed of not liking Gatorade. So I was like, I'm not like a cool sports person.
That's true. I really only like the Cool Frost flavor, which is what I'm drinking. The Glacier Freeze, the light blue one.
All right.
I'm
sorry.
best.
Yeah, that's a cop. Light blue Gatorade. Only narcs say like the actual flavor name.
Well, I was just reading. The thing is, on the label, it's like so hard to even find what it's actually called because Gatorade Frost, and the biggest letter is Frost and Cool. Gatorade Frost, thirst quencher, crisp and cool. And then in like very small letters, it's like Glacier Freeze.
That's because only narcs and cops call it
Sure.
Glacier Freeze. They call it light blue Gatorade. Like, you don't call Gatorade flavors by their actual names. You call them by their
I feel
colors.
like they've really branched out lately. There's like a lot more colors than there used to be.
I don't keep up with the Gatorade fandom.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh my god, do you think that there's fan fiction for the Gatorade for like what's the word when something anthropomorphized Gatorade bottle and like the Kool-Aid man?
Oh my god.
I'm like almost positive that there is Kool-Aid Man and Tony the Tiger fanfic.
Checks out. Where does the Tricks
if anyone
Rabbit,
knows where to find that?
Where does the Tricks
email
Rabbit
us a
fit
link.
into this?
He's with the Cookie Crisp. No. The Tricks Rabbit is too chaotic for the Cookie Crisp guy. You know what it is?
The bee.
It's the Tricks Rabbit and the Apple Jacks. The Here I Come, I Am Cinnamon guy, and then the apple from the Apple Jacks and the Cookie Crisp wolf.
Where does the Honey Nut Cheerios guy fit in?
He's asexual.
Buzzy the bee.
He's asexual. Don't sexualize Buzzy the bee. The rest of them fine. No. Sorry.
Nice.
Also, like, you know, the answer to that is the Bee movie, Rachel. There you go. That's the fan fiction.
It's true.
He goes with a random human Renee Zellweger. Like,
he fits in with the Smurfs.
No.
Yeah.
The Smurfs are a category all of their own.
He gives Smurf vibes, personally, to me.
Today, we're discussing Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. TikTok sensation.
So first of all, the cover of this book is very much not
Wait. Sorry. I feel like first, and foremost, we should give a strong trigger warning for it because
Sure.
like unlike other trigger warnings, I feel like it's like if this is gonna be bad for you, you should not listen to this episode like at all.
Yeah, definitely
and should
not.
not read this book at all.
No, I spoiled this for myself partially before reading it, and I was still like
Yeah.
shook. Like
Yeah.
it was still very like viscerally like traumatic once I got to it.
Yeah. And this is like a big spoiler also for the end of the book as well.
Right.
Just so you know. So our two main characters are Miles and Tate. Miles
Were you gonna
is
say what
like,
the trigger is?
Yeah, I was
Okay,
just
all right.
giving their names.
Okay.
Miles is our hero, and his traumatic backstory is that he had like a teen relationship and they got pregnant, and then literally when they were driving home from the hospital, they get in a car crash and drive into a river, and their like 2-day-old son drowns, and the parents both survive. But so strong trigger warning for infant death, and it's a lot scene. It's very like emotionally distressing, even if you are not a parent and have never been a parent like Rachel and I. Like it's still a lot.
If this had me like looking up like how to get a baby out of a car that's underwater. I'm now as equipped as you can be, which is still not very equipped. There's not a lot of things you can do, but
no. So it's a lot. It's only one scene, and because you know you're not spending the whole book knowing about this, it's like the reveal at the end.
We could start a drive to write to NHTSA, which is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, to regulate and have emergency release buttons on car seats. Apparently that's like what a lot of safety experts are like pushing for. But
why isn't that a thing already?
I don't know why. Like I was reading this like guy like had what to do, and he was like, yeah, the best thing you can do is just like practice how to get your kid out of their car seat with your eyes closed. Like there's like, and it's like really complicated. Like meanwhile, the very first thing you have to do is get your windows down because you only have like a minute to do that. Then get your seatbelt off. Then try to get the kids out, and then like get out.
God.
But yeah, we could all submit like notice and comment requests to NHTSA. That could be like a project.
Yeah, I don't know why that's not a thing.
I know, it seems like it would be. And there's like not really and not only do they not mandate it, there's like no car seats on the market that have it.
Yeah.
Like,
and it doesn't seem like something that would like be super expensive. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't seem something that would be like prohibitive in any way to the car company to add. Like they just want children to die. I don't know. What? Okay. So this book, I was trying to think of, this is like a specific genre of contemporary romance that I have encountered many times, and I have never been able to come up with a specific descriptor of what this like subgenre of contemporary romance is. And the best thing, I've been thinking about it all week since I finished this book. The best way I can describe it is that it's like gut punch contemporary, because you just feel like you've been punched in the gut when you read it. And this is actually the first one of this genre, which coincidentally always includes like heroines who are named, like this heroine is named Tate. Like if it's like a name with similar vibes, like you know it's going to be one of these. Like I don't make the rules. Like it's going to hurt you. This is the first one that like I actually was like, okay, I believe that in this happily ever after, and like also I'm not like emotionally scarred after finishing this. Like is she really, Colleen Hoover dragged us down, and then she really pulled us back up at the end for a home run. And I have literally never encountered that before, because it's always either like the reason for the hero being such an asshole is like, I don't think a good enough reason.
Right.
Or like something happened. There's like so much trauma that like I can't, like the romance doesn't like make up for it, or like, or whatever. And I've never experienced it. I usually just end up really upset and like thinking about it, and like, I don't know, considering upping my Prozac dosage after finishing those. And I've generally avoided them, which is why I was like very hesitant to read this book. But this is, oh wait, we didn't say, this is a listener suggestion.
Oh yeah.
We should say this. So thank you, listener, for recommending this. And see, everybody else, we do listen to you and read the books that you recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was initially, I mean, I'd heard a lot about Colleen Hoover, but I was like hesitant because I was like, I don't want to be sad. I read romance to not be sad.
You know, like I read this before you, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm not going to be able to get over this. Like his entire like character arc is like straight out of the player playbook, and I was like, this is not. There's no way I'm not going to like still hate him at the end, even though I like spoiled. I knew that like he had some kind of like his child had died. Like I knew that going into it. And I still was like, no way. But then like somehow, like I don't know.
Colleen Hoover brought it home, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Well done. Well done, Colleen Hoover. I can see why she's
Mhm.
so popular. I probably won't read many more of her other books because I don't think many more of her other books have like this traditional HEA romance.
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
I think I just wouldn't be able to handle that.
Yeah, it was definitely like a real romance, but I also like really wanted to know exactly what happened with Rachel because all of his flashbacks throughout the book, like up until the very end, his perspective is 100% 6 years ago with his like teen romance and his girlfriend Rachel,
Yeah.
girlfriend slash stepsister. And yeah, I was like very much hooked on like what was going to happen there.
Okay, so the premise, yeah, let's just talk about like the
Yeah.
structure of the book, the premise. So we have Tate, who is our primary narrator. She's narrating basically all the present day things, except for at the very, very end. She is a nurse. She is going to grad school for like to become a super nurse. I forget what like actual
Nurse
position she is.
anesthetist, I think.
Okay, so she's earning that bag. She's going to grad school so she can earn
Mhm.
that nursing bag. And she's moving in with her brother because like, she's in grad school, but she's also working. And her brother is named Corbin, and he is a pilot. And they come from like a family of pilots and flight attendants and all of that.
Mhm.
And Corbin's friend slash across the hall neighbor in this apartment building is Miles, who is our hero. And he is basically just very angsty. And you spend 90% of the book thinking he's just a total fuckboy.
Mhm.
And he is also a pilot. And his narration, except for at the very end, is entirely something that happened 6 years ago. So when he was 18, they're both 24. Or no, she's 23.
23.
She's 23, he's 24. His things are all what happened 6 years ago, and his relationship with a girl named Rachel, who was like his high school girlfriend. Which I want to ask you, like, how'd you feel about?
There was like, because the name Rachel, and also it wasn't just that she was named Rachel. It was like there were entire like minute long periods of just repeating the name Rachel. It was
Yeah.
like Rachel, Rachel, Rachel. I don't know.
Yeah. How did you? Well, I just like in general, like I don't know how I feel like. Like for example, like Stefan, who is our brother, is a lot of
Mhm.
times used for like the prince name. And luckily I've yet
Mhm.
to like come across like an explicit romance novel where Stefan is the hero name, but like it happens a lot in like Barbie movies. And I
Mhm.
always am like, that's weird. That's not your name. Like, and I think that if I like read a sex scene with like Stefan's name, I would be like, gross. No.
Mm.
But for you, I mean, there's like, it's like fade to black with Rachel and Miles, which I think helped. But also, I think the narrator, just because he said Rachel so many times, I became like desensitized to the word.
Oh
Which
yeah.
I think like if I had been reading it with my eyeballs, I would have just like skipped over all those like long
Yeah.
paragraphs of Rachel. But because I heard it and he just said it, he's just, I don't know, he just said it in a really annoying way too. He was like, Rachel, Rachel. Like, and maybe that was my fault because I was listening to it at 2.5 speed because like again like I both like was like really into this book and also was like I need to get through this book as fast as possible to limit my emotional
To not be
damage.
thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was listening to it at 2.5. Yeah, and just like the number, him just being like Rachel, Rachel, Rachel.
Yeah.
I was like, God, I can't.
I know. It was fine. I don't know. I guess like my name is so common. I guess it's like I hear it all the time. With Stefan, like I don't know, like Vampire Diaries. Like I feel like I also think of it
Oh
in like
yeah,
that
that's weird.
context. Like fictional Stefans, honestly, in my head, fictional Stefans look nothing like our brother. Like they all look
Yeah.
like the Vampire Diaries character, like brown hair, stocky, basically the
He's
complete
blonde in the
opposite.
Vampire Diaries.
No,
Yes, he has like dark blonde
no.
hair. Yes, he does.
He's blonde in the same way like
Our Stefan
every
is
other person,
blonde.
like in the same way our mom was blonde.
Our
Like
our Stefan has the same color hair as him.
no, he doesn't. Look him
Yes.
up. He
I
literally
did.
doesn't.
I regularly get, for some reason, Vampire Diaries memes on my Explore page. I know what
No.
these characters look like.
No. And he just has completely different coloring and different color eyes. Like everything about him is different.
I don't know. The one and only time I've encountered an Allison in a book, she was like the other woman and she like kissed the hero in front of the heroine. And I was like, you bitch. And then I was like, what the heck? Why don't I get nice things?
Yeah. I haven't come across a lot of fictional Allisons. I'm trying to think.
No, especially not one
Yeah.
spelled correctly. She was spelled correctly because her character was
Yeah.
Scottish. So
Oh, nice. You mean French?
anyway, so Tate is moving in with her brother. And she meets this old man who is the security guard / runs the elevator in the apartment building. I don't know. His name is Cap. I really digged him. I really enjoyed
It's
Cap.
a very catchy first line. You were stabbed in the neck, young lady.
Yeah. Yeah. So he says that because I guess she has a birthmark on her neck. And he's like, birthmarks are where you lost a battle in a previous life. And I was like, so someone like took me out at the knees? Because like I have a very large birthmark in my knee. Like, did someone like chop my leg off? Like,
no, that was a fortune. That was like predicting the future that mom would try to get it like surgically removed.
Oh my God. And didn't even succeed. And now it's just a weird half birthmark, half scar.
Like, I guess mine would be like this thing on my head that I'm not actually sure if it's a birthmark or a chickenpox scar.
You don't have any on like on
maybe
other
it's smallpox. I don't really have any big ones. I have like a light tan, like big-ish patch on my thigh, but it's nothing close to yours. It's like maybe like
well, I have one on my thigh too that's like it's little and like a heart shaped.
Mm-hmm.
That's also
I guess I have my cow, the cow, but that's a light spot, not a dark spot. But they're both the one on my face and the one on my arm are light spots. But yeah, but I think I know smallpox. Honestly, where is my smallpox vaccine, George W. Bush? I was Googling because I was arguing with someone about. I was trying to get him to get his booster, and he was like, feeding me all this like propaganda and bullshit about like how dangerous the COVID vaccine is. He was like, it's the most dangerous vaccine. People have died. And then I Googled like, what is the most dangerous vaccine? And just in case you were wondering, it's the smallpox vaccine. It has like a 1 in 1,000 chance of death or permanent disfigurement. And people were still getting that. That was just like, you went to school, you get shot up, like no questions asked. And like, no one was whining back then. But anyway, but then I found this article from 2002. And it was talking about how it was like President Bush has announced that every American who wants a smallpox vaccine will be able to get one by the end of the year. It's like, where the fuck is my smallpox vaccine, George W. Bush?
Well, you know what? It wouldn't be the first time that George W. Bush
I know. Maybe we had the option, but mom and dad just didn't let us get it.
Maybe.
Because he was like, it could be used as a bioweapon. We will all get vaccinated.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Okay, so she meets Cap. They go up in the elevator. This other guy named Dylan, I don't really know the relevance of him other than to like, I don't know, be a dick. Shows up. He's married, but he starts hitting on her.
I was expecting him to like come back and be like a real villain. Also, she's like, the reason she immediately knows she's married is because she sees him that he's married is she sees him like surreptitiously put his left hand in his pocket and she's like, oh, he must be hiding his wedding ring. But let me note that she's only 23. Like, she's really young. Would you like, I feel like if you're 23, I don't know. I just feel like my first thought would not be like, oh, this person must be married. He's hiding. You live in San Francisco. Okay. Your peers are not married. I don't know.
Here's my explanation for that. She's a nurse. She's been working for a nurse for at least a year. Okay, she's 23. Let's assume she graduated when she was 22. At least a year. I feel like nurses probably get hit on a lot.
Yeah.
In hospitals, and they meet a lot of different kinds of people.
It's not unheard of. I'm just saying she's 23, but she's coded as like, I would say at least like 3 or 4 years older.
Yeah, I was always taken aback by how young they all are. Because even her like brother is 25. Like 25. Like, yeah, they're all very, very. I feel like they all could have been aged up 5 years.
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't think that would have. I don't know if that was like because Colleen Hoover was like, oh, I don't know whether that much time could have passed, and Miles like still be the emotionally traumatized. But like I feel like losing a child, like you never get over that.
No.
And like if someone told me like, yes, 10 years later he was still just as emotionally scarred from losing his child,
right, I
would be like, yeah, that I believe it.
Right.
That was interesting. Yeah, I don't know why they're that young. Because Miles becomes like a captain, like an airplane captain. And I'm like, they're like, wow, you're so young. But I'm like, thinking about that now, I'm like, yeah, he's 24.
Right, that's crazy.
Well,
yeah, are you sure he's 24 and not 25?
I think he well, 6 years ago, he was 18 in high school.
Yeah.
So he has to be 24. Yeah. Well, that's my thing is like maybe he's been a pilot since he was like 20.
Right. But still. Yeah. I mean,
I don't know how long it takes you to be a captain.
She does recognize that that's like unusual.
Yeah. That it's because he like works too much.
Right. Like maybe it's like based on hours and he's like managed to. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. The average age is like 27. It's join plus 4 years. So yeah, if he did it when he was 20, then like it's feasible.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't think he went to college. Like, he always was just like, I'm going straight to flight
Well, no, he
school.
was planning on going to college originally, but then, whatever.
No, I thought he was going to flight school.
No, he specifically, at one point when he's first talking to Rachel, he's like, I want to go to college and then I want to go to flight school. But then when they get pregnant, he's like, I'll just go to flight school.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, anyway. Okay, so she goes up. She meets Dylan, the asshole. Okay. She gets to her apartment. Dylan dips. Yeah, he like tries to like find out what floor she's going to, and she like hits all the buttons, which like bold, good. Like I wish I would have the balls to do that.
She was like very brazen about that. I was like, wow.
But then later on, yeah, and she like immediately hates Dylan. But then later on, she's like, oh, I don't know why my brother hates Dylan so much. Like, oh, I kind of feel bad for him. I'm like, what? You immediately
she
like
does?
Yeah, there's like I wrote down it's like at least 2 different times she like doubts herself. She's like, oh, they all hate Dylan so much. Like, I'm like, what do you mean? Why? Like why are you like undermining your own like immediate knowledge of this? Like,
I don't remember that. Anytime Dylan was on the screen, I was like, why are they friends with him?
Exactly.
Well, to this day, I still don't understand why they're friends. We'll talk about that later. We need to talk about that later. Anyway.
Yeah.
So she rolls up to her brother's apartment and she sees a man passed out at the door. And she's like, what the fuck? And she calls her brother and she was like, there is a drunk man passed out at your door. And her brother's like, oh no, oh my God. Like, can you get in? And so she does. And then like the man grabs her ankle as she's like opening the door and she like, slams his wrist in the door.
Like at that point, I'd be like calling the police. He like assaulted you. Like, literally, like not even like.
So she slams his wrist in the door. She gets away. She calls him. And then we find out that man is, in fact, Miles, who calls Corbin and is like, dude, like, let me into your apartment. And then Corbin calls Tate back and is Corbin, can you let my friend into the
Corbin is like, I'll call Miles to come help you with the drunk guy. And it turns out Miles is the drunk guy.
Yeah.
So Corbin's like, let him in. Miles is like totally wasted, like blacked out. And all he's saying is like, Rachel, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry, Rachel.
And he's crying like a lot. He also has like a sexy scar on his face. The reasons behind it, as you already know. Or the reason, it's definitely from the car crash.
Well, it's never like explicit, but yeah.
Maybe. Anyway, yeah, the reason behind the scar is not so sexy, but like I still love a sexy scar. It's like right along his like jawline or whatever. So, it's like hot or whatever. So Tate finally puts him to bed and she's like, that was weird, but I'm tired. And so like he's going to sleep on the couch and she puts him in the position because she's a nurse where if he throws up, he's not going to asphyxiate. So everyone, you should always put a drunk person on their side on the floor so that they don't choke on their own vomit.
So she goes to bed and then the next morning Miles like walks into her room and wakes her up and she's like not a morning person. So she's like really pissed. And
no. There's a flashback first. They go to bed and now we have our first Miles flashback where he is in high school and he meets Rachel and she is his high school sweetheart. It's very like love at first sight. He's like, oh my God, like
this is the girl
I'm in love with her. At one point he like smells her and I was just like normally I would be creeped out by that, but like because you're a child, I'm like, oh, that's cute. He's just like a little dweeb. He's like, oh my God, I'm gonna marry her.
And then so she's just moved to this school. She's new from Phoenix, naturally. And we should have known that her mom was gonna be like shitty. Considering, well, she's not actually. Whatever.
Well, we haven't met the mom yet. All we've got is he shows her to class. He shows her to an English class with a Mr. Clayton. Yeah. Important. Remember that.
And he snaps us like he like takes a like surreptitious picture of her and like sends it to his best friend, and he's like, she's gonna have my babies, which like is so cringy. He's to do in high school. Like, it's just so
I don't know. He's so Miles in these flashbacks is just like so pure that I really like. I think these flashbacks are super important, not just to like build the tension of like, oh my God, what happened with Rachel? Because at this point you're kind of thinking, you're like, oh, well, is Rachel dead? Like that must be it. Not the case. But I feel like these flashbacks also balance out like Miles' personality, because like Miles' personality in the present is like we said, a big dick. He's a fuckboy, but he's just so pure in the flashbacks. He's just so like in love and like cute and like it's like a sticky sweet YA novel. It's just so besides the like step sibling banging, but it makes it, you're like, okay, so he's capable of being like this,
right?
Something must have happened. And I was like, everybody loves this book. I'm gonna trust that Colleen Hoover has like
a good reason for why he like changed from being teenage Miles to current Miles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it really kind of helps you stick with Miles, and you're like, God, he fucking sucks.
Mm-hmm. So we cut back to present day. Miles like rudely wakes her up, as I was saying before. She's like very unhappy about this. And he, instead of being like, oh, thank you for taking care of me, he's like, what happened to my hand? Like, what the fuck happened to my hand? And she's like, get the fuck out.
That never comes back. I thought his hand was going to be broken. He wasn't going to be able to fly for like a month. They were going to have a forced proximity.
I'm picturing the angle that your wrist would have to get, the door would have to close on your wrist in order for you to still be holding someone's leg when it closes on the other side. You know what I mean? And like, that is not a nice angle.
It's like literally right.
Like
both times I've broken my wrist. That's where it happened.
Right. But he's fine.
Yeah. Anyway, he's not apparently like, but I guess it's bruised enough that he noticed. That's my thing is like, I don't.
Right.
I'm like how damaged? Like you have to notice, but like it's not damaged enough that it's like anything that needs to be addressed later.
Right.
So I'm like, Miles, are you just like a crybaby or like do you just not feel pain? Which I have a theory about that. We'll discuss that later.
Yeah. And she's basically like, I'm going back to bed now. If you come back later today, we can try again.
So now we get another flashback. Miles is chatting with his dad. His dad is like, I have a girlfriend and we've been together for a year. And she's coming over tonight with her daughter. And Miles is like, oh my God, that means that you were cheating on mom. Because his mom died less than a year ago of like some unspecified illness.
It's cancer. We find out later. But yeah, well, first of all, the dad randomly, like Miles asks Rachel out that day. He doesn't talk to her for a full week. She comes on Monday. He doesn't get up the nerve to talk to her until Friday. And he asks her out for the next day. And then, like that night, I guess he's going to go hang out with his best friend. What's his name again? I don't remember. He's also, his best friend is Ian in the present day also. They're still hanging out. Ian.
They're all pilots.
And so he was going to go hang out with Ian, and his dad calls him and he's like, can you come home? And Miles is like, no, I'm going to hang out with Ian. And his dad's like, no, I need you to come home right now. I have to tell you something important. And so he just like, minutes before his new girlfriend Lisa comes over with no warning, like what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like you're not going to prepare your child at all. The dad is redeemed a bit, but like,
right.
Yeah.
So we get an explanation, like, spoiler alert, he wasn't actually cheating on the mom. The parents were like separated. They were just going to like wait to get a divorce until like Miles graduated high school. But I'm still like, I'm like, literally every other thing that the dad does makes him a bad dad. I'm like, even if you were cheating on your wife, you're still a shitty parent.
Yeah. So he springs his new girlfriend Lisa on Miles, and Lisa shows up, and guess who Lisa's daughter is? It's Rachel.
And as soon as the dad was like, yeah, she has a daughter, I was like, it's fucking Rachel, isn't it? Like it's gonna be fucking Rachel. This is gonna be a step sibling romance. And then it was.
Oh my God.
It's like Life with Derek. Do you remember that show, that Disney sitcom?
I don't think I ever.
It was like short-lived. I'm pretty sure it was like Canadian, but it appeared on the Disney Channel, and it was about step siblings. But their parents were like actually married, like when they met. Like it begins with like their parents getting married, they met. But there was definitely like, I'm not sure whether there was an actual like. I think that there was an actual by like season 3 they were actually like dating, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah, I mean, but here's the thing, like it's so. I don't know. I'm not gonna like here. It's like it's not their fault. Like they met before, but also like if you're parents and you're gonna like try to have teenage children that have literally no familiar relationship live in the same house as each other.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I don't know. Like it's not like the sibling family gene, like trigger in your brain is just something you can like turn on and off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's not. It's like. It's the reason.
Well, that's the thing. That's why you also like why they're shitty. Both Lisa and the dad are shitty parents is because
they
like
springs it on them.
They spring. Well, Rachel's apparently known about Miles' dad for a long time. She's known that her mom was in a relationship and she's like met him before.
Yeah,
but like, yeah, he springs it on him, and then they find out like literally like a month after that is when they all move in together to like Miles' apartment, and. I'm like, no. If you're going to have, and they're like, later on, they're like, oh, we didn't think you would mind because like you're moving out soon. And I'm like, you're still like, your child is living at home.
Right.
No. Like
you could have just waited a little bit longer too.
But like when you're blending families, like unless your children are like 40 and like, you know what I'm like,
right.
And you're getting remarried, like you are not. You gotta like blend. You gotta like make sure your children like get along.
Yeah, like Rachel's mom is Rachel's mom is a little better because at least she like introduced the dad. But This is still a whole ass another person that's going to be living there that you've never met.
Yeah. And they
It's
moved
insane.
there.
Right.
The thing that we
without
find out
meeting.
later without Lisa telling Rachel that they plan to move in together like a month after moving.
Well, Rachel knew that they only rented the. Yeah, she didn't say it explicitly.
No, but
yeah,
she
true.
hears
yeah.
that over the phone. Rachel didn't know
Right.
that going in.
Right. Yeah,
Anyway,
they're all shit.
we're skipping ahead. These parents are shit. Even if they're like kind of redeemed, they still fucking suck.
Yeah. So back to present day. They all
It's game night.
Okay, well first Miles and Corbin like help. Like Corbin calls Miles to come help like brings Tate's stuff up from her car, and Miles like reintroduces himself to her because she had previously said like, you know, come back later and we'll try again. And so like they do get reintroduced, but whatever. Okay, cut to game night. Corbin is working because he's a pilot, so very irregular schedule, whatever. And Tate just like comes home one day from class and there's like 3 dudes in her living room. It's it's Miles, Ian, and asshole Dylan. Yeah. And they're all like watching the TV and she's like, what the get out of my house. What are you doing in my house?
What are you doing in my swamp? But she's like, you guys are here for like a football game and like beer and like chatting, but like I need to study. Like I'm in fucking nursing grad school. Like I need peace and quiet. But she like gaslights herself into being like, oh, it's not justifiable for me to be angry. And I'm like, yes, it is. Your brother's not there. Like I understand you're living with your brother temporary. Are those cosmic brownies?
Yes.
And you're just going to eat them in front of me?
Yes. It was a very impulse buy.
What the fuck?
They were in the right place at the right time. It felt like a sign. I'll give you one. You want the first bite?
What do you – fuck you.
I can save one and bring it to you. They definitely don't go bad.
I don't know. Okay. Anyway. Tate is like angry that they're there and then she's like, oh, but like they have a regular standing thing and like I'm just living temporarily in my brother's apartment. And it's not fair for me to kick them out and like change their schedule. And I'm like, yeah, but your brother's not here. Your brother's not here. So you are currently the only occupant of this apartment and you get to make the rules. You get to be like, okay, this week, no. Like next week I will prepare for this. I will go somewhere else to study for the night. But this week, no. But instead, she doesn't even get gaslighted by the other people. She gaslights herself into thinking that like she's being unreasonable. And I'm like, ladies, stand up for yourself. Ladies, you're not being unreasonable.
I find out the reason they can't go to Miles's place is that he doesn't have cable. Ian, I don't know why they can't go to Ian's place, but they can't go to Dylan's.
They're not in the same building.
Oh, yeah.
Because Dylan, Miles, and Corbin all live in the same building.
They can't possibly leave the building for football night.
Yeah.
That's unreasonable. Only Ian can do that. But the reason they can't go to Dylan's is because his wife has like said no. So Dylan's wife gets veto power, but not Tate. Like, come on.
Well, Dylan's wife deserves something considering Dylan is serially cheating on her. And by the way, like, I mean, I don't know whether, do we think Dylan's wife knows that he's a piece of shit? Because it seems to be like an open...
No, because he explicitly says like she works nights. Like she doesn't know.
Yeah. I just like, I wanted someone to tell Dylan's wife. Here's my thing. Here's my whole philosophy. Because people are like, oh, well, it's none of your business. You know what I mean? People, that kind of stuff, like, especially if you're not good friends with them. But I'm like, here's the thing. If a married man hits on me, that's the moment he makes it my business.
Right.
The moment you try to drag me into your cheating, or the moment you make me like keep this secret, you make it my business.
Right. Yeah,
so,
I agree.
FYI, PSA to everybody. If you're cheating on your significant other, you better not fucking tell me, because I'm going to turn right around and like message them and be like, this is the deal. Like,
no, and like if it's a stranger, there's like nothing to lose, you know? It's like you get them the information. There's no like really danger of it backfiring on your relationship because you don't have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
Right? Is that the right way to think about it? Or is it like selfish to be like, I'm going to dump this on you? I don't think so.
I would want to know. There's never a situation in which I wouldn't want to know if my significant other was cheating on me. And if I found out that somebody that I knew even tangentially was aware and didn't tell me, I would cut that person out of my life. I feel like we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Or a similar thing.
Yeah.
Maybe in the love hypothesis, we were talking about like, if you knew someone was like a sexual predator and you didn't like tell them, like, I would cut them out.
Yeah, I can't think of a situation where it would be like,
no.
Yeah, no.
I would always want to know. Yeah. So, but they're also like, so she sees Dylan. She's like, oh, what's Dylan doing there? Because he's still being creepy. He's like still like, you know, like staring at her tits. And Miles is like, oh, we don't like Dylan. We're not friends with Dylan. Like, I'm not friends with Dylan. And I'm like, so why don't you kick him out?
He's like, we invited him to regular game night before we found out what he was like. And I guess they're all just like too much cowards to be like, don't come anymore.
Yeah. Well, we find that out. That's said later, because at this point I was like, so is Dylan like blackmailing them? Like, what is the reason that they don't just tell him that, no, you can't come in? But it's literally just like, they're like, oh, well, he knows, so we can't just uninvite him. I'm like, yes, you can. You're allowed to tell people.
Have you ever? Okay, I know you're right. I know you're right in theory, but have you ever done that?
No, you know what I would do? I'd be like, oh, we're not doing it anymore.
Yeah,
and then I just continue to fucking do it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but Miles and Corbin live on the same floor, and Ian and Miles are best friends, so it wouldn't be weird if Ian was just like, yeah, I'm here to see Miles.
Yeah, true. Yeah, yeah.
I like, why are you there? And he keeps like hitting on his sister, on like Tate.
Yeah.
I just like, there's no explanation for why Dylan has to continue to be there.
This is instance number 1 where Miles tells Tate that he doesn't like Dylan, and Tate is like, you know, I think I might be with Miles on this one. I don't like Dylan much either. But she says it as if it's like the first time it's occurred to her, as if she didn't have the entire exchange on the elevator, where, let me remind you, she aggressively pressed every single button just so he wouldn't know what floor she was on. Like,
yeah, that's, I don't know.
Anyway,
and they're like we said, they're all pilots. And I just couldn't stop thinking about Pilot Pete from The Bachelor. I was like, this is just a book full of Pilot Petes. And like, God, considering that they're all fuckboys, like all of them canonically are fuckboys.
Yeah.
Except for maybe Ian. Ian may be married, I'm not sure. But the rest of them are canonically fuckboys.
Well, yeah, no, yeah, yeah. Okay, so Miles is like, why don't you go over to my apartment to study? So she gets to go see his apartment. And basically it's like the most boring blank box ever. And she's like, it looks like he just moved in. But then she finds out he's lived there for like, what, 6 years? Like 4 years or something.
It's like not decorated. And she calls him out. She's like, why don't you fucking like have anything in your apartment besides like a couch and a bed? You loser.
I understand that though.
No, yeah. I mean, he doesn't really like live there. Like he works a lot, and he works as a pilot, so like he's very much not at home.
Right, and if he doesn't like know how long he's going to be living there, like it's just so annoying to accumulate junk for the sake of junk and then have to move it all.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think there's a difference between like buying curtains and like having a lot of tchotchkes, because like he doesn't even have curtains.
Yeah, I guess
that's what I say.
Curtains,
you know what I mean? He doesn't really have anything. They bond over their mutual love of orange juice. That comes back a lot. They just really love orange juice.
I still don't know. So is orange juice a household staple or not? Like, if we're polling all the normal people out there, would they say yes or no? Because we grew up always having in the fridge both a gallon of milk and a gallon of orange juice from Sam's Club. Do you remember that?
Yes,
for years.
OJ.
Yes, always. Right, OJ. So I always thought that OJ was like a normal drink. Everyone drinks it. I don't know what point, probably around the point that Gatorade became taboo. Probably orange juice went around that time. Like Dad decided that those are both too sugary and stopped buying them. I don't know. But I feel like I remember like, you know, I don't know for sure, but like something along the lines of like going to a friend's house and being like, oh, can I have some orange juice? And them not having it and me being like shocked. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have orange juice? So you're gonna tell me you don't have water next? Like, what is this? But then we get a book like this and they both love orange juice. I'm like, what's the truth?
I feel like it is, because orange juice is like a breakfast staple. You know what I mean? Like, you have your orange juice and pancakes.
Actually, I know, like theoretically, the same way that like eggnog is a Christmas staple, but how many people actually drink eggnog regularly at Christmas? Like I've encountered it. I've been offered it like
number of people
once in my life at like our family, like
many times.
I've like never.
Disgusting.
I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah. They bond over how they love orange juice. Miles does not, however, usually drink. He's like, no, like that night was an exception. And at this point, I'm like, the anniversary of Rachel's death. But as you'll find out later, Rachel is not dead. And it is the anniversary of
we don't find
much more tragic death.
Yeah.
He does explain. He's like, it's the anniversary of my son's death. Or no, I'm sorry, it's the anniversary of his son's birth. He's like, my son would have been 6 years old today. And I mean, he died 2 days after he was born.
Very minorly bothered me about the flashbacks is that the entire time the flashbacks are happening, it says that it's 6 years ago, but that is not, it's 6 years from when the accident happened. If you walk that back, like she got pregnant 9 months before that, and she didn't get pregnant as soon as they met. It's been at least a few months. So it's really 7 years ago when it starts.
Like a month before she gets pregnant.
Sure, but still, that's an added 10 months. Like,
well,
you can't just keep saying it's
7 years.
Whatever.
It's technically not 7 years.
Whatever. Sure. No, because they don't move in together for a month, and then like they don't immediately have like the rules. Whatever.
Whatever.
Anyway, again, very minor. So next big thing that happens, Corbin comes home.
She asked him at this time, she asked him about Rachel.
Oh, yeah.
She's like, who's Rachel? Because he was talking about it when he was drunk. And he was like, and then he like runs away. And she's like, okay, that was weird.
Oh, and she has like both the first morning and now she's like, oh, he's so good looking. She's at one point, she's like, oh, his eyes were so light blue. They were almost colorless. And every time she says this, his eyes get lighter and lighter. Like, she's like, they don't even look blue anymore. They're just like see-through. And I'm like, this is not, I just picture like, this is like the eye color that you give like the creepy villain to signal that they're like creepy villain, you know? Like, this is like,
maybe she's trying to throw us off.
This is like the king's assistant who's like basically Jafar with creepy blue eyes. Like,
Colleen, listen, what happened was that Colleen Hoover was like, well, I would like to have him be eating a green apple, but that's too obvious. Like, that's like too much of a red herring. So like, I'm just going to make him have really, really light blue eyes.
Yeah. But I think she says it in a way that it's supposed to be like good looking. And I'm like,
I mean, I can see because he has dark hair. So it's like the dark hair, light eyes, like
right.
combo.
I know, I understand that. But to the point of being colorless. All right. So it's Thanksgiving and Corbin has decided to pull a Miles dad by inviting Miles home for Thanksgiving, but not telling Tate until like the day of. He's like, all right, kids, get in the car. And she's like, what do you mean?
I was very confused this whole, like, it took me like half the chapter to be like, oh, Miles is going home for them for Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's really? What's happening here. I just did not understand. Because right before that, they talk about like Christmas and Miles is like, no, I'm not doing anything for Christmas. So I was like, okay, Miles is staying there. I was just very confused. Yeah. So they have a tense, like, sexual tension car ride with Corbin. And they play like eye tag the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, because Miles is like, oh, I'll drive because you haven't slept yet to Corbin. I'm like, why isn't Tate driving? Like, what is this like?
She's a woman. She's not allowed to drive.
This is like, it's her car, her brother's car, whatever.
But I just realized it's kind of a parallel because right before the car accident at the end, like Miles is like playing mirror eye tag with like Rachel.
Yeah, why isn't his like phobia not being able to drive instead of like not being able to fall in love?
Well, his phobia is not wanting to love. He's like, I know I can. I just don't want to experience that again.
Sure.
Well, also because from my understanding of the accident is very like foggy. Like you don't really fully understand what's happened. It's just like he's driving and then he sees headlights. So like, but my understanding of it was that they got hit by another car.
Oh, sure.
Not that like Miles.
Oh no, I wasn't
caused
saying it was
the accident.
No, but I mean, it's not his fault that it. Yeah, I'm not saying it has to actually be his fault, but yeah. Okay, so they get there and then
wait.
What?
Wait, you missed
the foot grab.
Yes. They're driving there. She puts her feet on the console and he like holds onto her foot and like rubs it. And I'm like, okay, so now we know there's a foot fetish in play. Mm-hmm. It never like comes to fruition, unfortunately, but like Miles has a foot fetish confirmed.
I don't know if rubbing feet is enough. You have to like actively notice the feet. You have to remark. We have to get confirmation that they have like thought about the feet.
He's definitely thought about the feet because she puts the feet there and then he like slowly moves his hand over and then
she like moves it back. He's like, no, don't.
Piggling. Yeah. She starts to move her foot back and he like takes it and just like starts rubbing her feet.
Oh my God.
And Corbin doesn't fucking notice anything, I guess, because he's asleep. It's so weird.
So they get there, and Tate's mom is immediately like, oh, that boy is cute. Like, do you like him? And Tate's like, she's just like, oh, yeah, like, you know, I love my mom, but I don't really like telling her about stuff like this because when I got my first period, she was so excited. She called 3 friends before she even told me what was going on.
Ma'am.
What? God. I would die. I would quite frankly die. But also, like, you don't even know what's going on. Like, you didn't get any sex education up to that point. Like, she's already failed in that respect. Your parents already have like dropped the ball. Maybe it's not as bad because she doesn't have that like internalized shame, embarrassment that, you know, she doesn't know what's going on, but just treating it as a positive thing. Not that like our mom didn't do that, but I'm just saying the overall atmosphere gave me that impression.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming
she's telling her friends that she's like, woohoo, my child is
no, I'm not saying woman. Like mom definitely did that too. Like we definitely like went and celebrated. But like I went like to Italian People's Bakery or something. But like already by that point I'd already like had the ingrained embarrassment. Like it was too late. The damage was done.
Oh, I didn't. I guess I was earlier.
I don't know.
I guess I'm just like better than everyone.
Really? That's great.
Well, I know for a fact that I was the first person in my grade, like in my school, to get my period.
How do you know?
Because people like told me. Like I became like the period guru. Like, you know what I mean? Like people would like tell me when they got their period. People would be like, if someone needed a tampon, like I was the gal to go to. 'Cause, like I had my little like small pencil case filled with tampons in my backpack at all times.
Huh.
I know a lot of like when a lot of people got their period, like I know for whatever reason, like it just always got back to me.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, she's not gonna tell her mom. Her mom's like knows. So then they have like Thanksgiving dinner, and for some reason I can't remember how this gets brought up, but like,
Wait, you forgot where he slices his hand open.
oh yeah.
Okay, so she's like, "Oh, Miles is cute," and Tate is like, and then like runs off. And so the boys, have been putting up Christmas lights, and somehow Miles slices his hand on a ladder, which like
he has
are
to
ladders sharp at any like
if
are they that sharp? He slices his hand hard enough to need stitches.
The rungs could be. Well, it's because the pressure, because it's the ladder's falling, so he has to stop from falling to stop Corbin from falling off of it. So maybe if it's heavy, it has a person on it. So like maybe
Tate is like, why didn't you just let the ladder fall? And Miles is like, because Corbin was on it. And I was like, that is the most dramatic way to tell someone that you just saved the ladder from falling. Yeah. But anyway, Tate is a nurse naturally, so she's like, let me clean that up for you. And they have like a moment in the bathroom, and he's like, she's like, this needs stitches. And he's like, I don't want to go to the hospital. I don't know why. It's unclear.
No, maybe because of his baby. No. He's just like, I don't want to spend all day in the emergency room. Like, I'll waste all Thanksgiving Day.
So he's like, stitch it up at home. And she's like, I can't just do that. And he's like, literally stitch it up at home. So she does. And he just like doesn't, I guess, feel any pain. Oh! I just realized something.
What?
Maybe it's okay. So we keep going ahead to like the car accident, but I'm making all these connections. So in the car accident, when they're in the water, he does not know that the first thing you have to do is get the windows open. And so he like punches the window open. Like that's how he like breaks the window like with his hand. And he's very explicitly like,
you still might have to do that. Like you either if it doesn't work to get it down, you have to punch it out, but still within the first minute.
No, I understand this. I'm just saying like he punched it out. And he's very explicitly like his hand is covered in blood. Mm-hmm. He like looks at his hand. He's like, my hand is covered in blood. So what if that's the hand and it like damaged the nerve endings. And so he just doesn't have any feeling in his hands.
I think you're reading too much into this. It's not like getting stitches is like excruciatingly painful. It's not like getting your leg sawed off. You know, like they were doing this way before they had modern anesthesia.
Okay. Rachel, of the two of us, who has gotten stitches more often?
Them with anesthesia. So
no, when I got them on my ankle, they kept trying to do it without anesthesia. And then they finally were like, we're going to make your mom leave if you don't let us do it. And then they finally were like, fine, we'll do anesthesia. They tried to give me fucking stitches. I vividly remember this. And then they like condescendingly gave me a bear for being brave, which I still have.
So maybe, okay, I'm sorry. Maybe then it's normal to get the without anesthesia. And you're just,
but it fucking hurt. I'm saying it fucking hurt.
Sure. But like, all I'm saying is like, I'm not saying it doesn't hurt. I'm just saying like it's bearable. And like you're a child versus he's a grown man who's used to suppressing his emotions.
No, here's my thing.
We don't get it from his perspective.
We don't with anesthesia.
We don't know that he's not sitting there being like, oh my God, this fucking hurts so much, but I can't scream because I can't look like a baby.
I don't know. Anyway, she stitches up his hand at home. And then they like make out really fast in the bathroom, and then they're like, we can never speak of this again. Okay, so Miles regrets the kiss.
So they get to the table, and Miles and Tate and Corbin's mom is like Miss Nosy Nelly, and she's like, so Miles, you got a girlfriend? And he's and Corbin like laughs, and he's so like
weird.
He's like Miles hasn't had a girlfriend in the 2 to 3 years I've known him. Like no. And Corbin's like, actually, and everyone like laughs. And Corbin's like, actually, it's been 6 years. And they all like stop laughing. And then like, I forget how, but they're like pushing him. And then Corbin's like, guys, stop. He's gay. And Miles is like, I'm not. No. And Tate's like, he's not gay. And Corbin's like, no, I'm not. And then like, I don't know. It's all just like very, just like 2014.
Yeah, I didn't love.
I don't know.
This like, oh, we all thought Miles was gay. Like, Yeah, I get 2014, but I'm like, I don't. Why is that like a funny joke?
Right. I mean, but I also thought at first that Miles and Rachel were gonna have been married, and then like something broke up their marriage that was like tragic, and that Corbin was laughing because because he's like, just because Miles doesn't have a girlfriend doesn't mean he's single. And I was like, well, are you really like laughing at the fact that he like was married at one point but like had a tragic breakup? Like what? But then he was like, it's because he thought he was gay. So I was like, all right, Corbin's like not such a big jerk.
Well, I thought he was still gonna be married, but like estranged from Rachel.
Yeah.
I did not see the
like
gay
something
coming.
like that, and I was like, why are you laughing? Like, yeah.
Yeah. It's like Bella with the fucking albinism. Like, haha, my mom's an albino.
Yeah. I also at this point though, when we found out he hasn't been with a girl in 6 years, I was like a little bit relieved because I thought that like the whole Miles doesn't want love thing was going to mean he was like an actual like player and like, you know, just like sleeping around and like, you know. So.
It's not. It's just because he's sad. TM.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tate is like obsessed with Miles. She's like, oh my God, he's single and he's like hasn't been with a girl in 6 years, which is like, I don't know, he's sensitive or whatever. So they have like a midnight rendezvous in the kitchen
OJ
and have some like
rendezvous.
weird orange juice foreplay. Like orange juice is like really a big factor in their relationship. And this is when Miles is explicitly like, I haven't had sex or kissed anyone besides like, you know, our tryst in the bathroom in 6 years. And she's like, oh, and she's like immediately she's gone. And at this point they agree to have just like a casual sex relationship. And like obviously we know there's no way fucking Tate, you know, is even like, even at this point, even at the point of agreeing, she's like, there's no way like she actually can do that.
Right.
But I'm also like, oh, Miles, like the classic romance hero move, like just sex, like just to get it out of our system. Like, oh, this means nothing. And I'm like, you
but
already have feelings for her.
This starts the player playbook. And I know that like, I don't know, this happens a lot, like especially in historicals, but like it's like it's just different because in historicals, you know, they're gonna end up getting married, even if, you know what I mean, there's like more, it's like somehow feels like less like this was like literally so straight out of like the real life player playbook, like starting at this point, that I was like, this is just like sending, I know like, you know, people will like shit on romance books for like setting unrealistic expectations or whatever, and in general I'm like, that's stupid. But for this, it's like, it literally is like just so much like in real life, if this happens, it is not ending well. You know what I mean? Like you're going into this, like the guy's just like an asshole. There's like no way this is coming out at the other end, you know? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, because here's my thing. So Miles has like 2 rules, and he's like, don't ask about my past and don't expect a future. You know, it's, I don't know, poetic, and he's a drama queen. And I'm like, listen, he is being honest. He is being very upfront. Like before they do anything, he's like, I don't want a relationship. And I do respect people's ability, people's right to be like, I don't want anything serious right now. Like I'm being totally upfront with like what expectations you can have for me. But it's also that like, it's the fuckboy playbook of like, oh, he's like, we're just in a casual relationship, right. But also like we're doing all these things that are very like relationship TME, and the way I'm acting towards you is implying that I want more. And like, I do recognize, listen, I'm not saying that Tate is like totally blameless, because she is like, she is like, I should leave, and she just doesn't.
Yeah, go ahead.
But like, yeah, it is very much, if my friend was going through, it's like, you know, you date that guy who's like, we're not in a relationship, but you go to brunch on Sundays and like you meet his mom, you know,
right. No, but the clincher for me is that at one point she does try to end things. Remember, like she literally walks out and she's like, I'm done. And then he sees her like her male study partner coming to her apartment to study, and he gets all jealous and he like walks in, and I'm like, at that point, I mean, I was not on his side to begin like at all, but like that's all plausible deniability is gone, because she did try to leave, and you know that this is hurting her, and yet you still won't leave her the fuck alone.
Yeah.
You know, like that's like,
yeah. Listen,
I don't know.
Only in a romance do I find this acceptable.
Right.
I mean, normally I wouldn't. Again, this is also a classic move that happens in these gut punch contemporaries. And part of the reason that they often don't work for me is because I'm like, this guy's an asshole. Like, this girl can do so much better. Like, why? And he like never fully apologizes. But like Miles really like, again, has a good reason for like why he's being such an asshole. And also fully apologized. Is fully like, you know what I mean? He doesn't, we don't get a long instance of groveling, but like the like extended groveling is implied, you know?
And I like trust our readers and listeners to like separate fact from fiction, obviously. It's just that, I don't know. I've like rarely, if ever, read a book that was just like so on the nose with this.
It was a lot, yeah.
Like, but okay, so I think we might have skipped the flashback because I wrote here
multiple flashbacks.
Okay. Because I wrote like he sure doesn't seem to have a great history of relationships, of keeping rules with relationships because
no.
So the flashbacks, the next thing that happens in the flashbacks is that
that's literally the next flashback.
Oh, okay.
When I wrote my note about that. Well, they've already moved in together. We skipped the flashbacks where they move in together and like Rachel and Miles agree to start dating in secret and like make their rules like where they're not gonna have sex because like they're kind of step siblings but like not officially yet. I spent this whole time waiting for the dad to get punched, by the way. Every time there's a flashback, I was like, when is the dad going to get punched in the face? Spoiler alert, it doesn't happen. Miles gets punched in the face by the dad.
Oh, God.
But unfortunately, the dad never gets like,
so
just like the old 1-2.
Surprise, surprise, they break the no sex rule. They have sex.
And this is where I wrote, I was like, it's interesting that like both the relationships we see with Miles and presumably the only like 2 serious relationships he's had are secret ones.
Definitely. Oh yeah, true.
You know, because his relationship, he doesn't have a relationship with Tate, but like his casual sex with Tate, like they're keeping it a secret from Corbin because Corbin is like the overprotective brother TM. Like it's very like explicitly said that he would react.
Oh, this is a rare example of a sibling relationship where I don't think he gets his own book. He's not going to get his own book, right?
No.
Where he's not like totally shit. In fact, he didn't even really get on my nerves that much. Like he's a little bit like, I'm a little bit like get out of her grill, but like, you know, he's nowhere near the level of like the usual annoying.
And he's usually, when he is mad, he's like mad at Miles. He's like, I asked you not to fuck my sister. Why did you continue to fuck my sister? And he's also, when Corbin finds out, and this is skipping ahead, but I don't care. Like when Corbin finds out, he's like, Miles, do you love her? That's the thing. And if Miles had been like, yes, like I'm falling in love with her, Corbin would have been like, fine, like whatever. I'm mad you didn't tell me, but like that's fine.
Like,
But because it's just like casual sex, he's like, you're hurting my sister emotionally, and I don't like that.
Right.
As opposed to the like, the usual overprotective brother is like, how dare you to spoil my virgin sister?
Right.
How will she ever find a husband now? Both in historicals and in like contemporary. Like, in wherever time period we are, like that's usually what the overprotective older brother trope is, and that's I'm not usually a fan of it.
Yes, they're in their. Are we doing the flashback? Yeah, we're pretty much up to date on the flashback.
I want to talk about the flashback. I mean, the present day is them just having sex, but the flashback they have like hot shower sex.
Oh yeah,
Miles and Rachel, and I was like, and it's fade to black, and they do like mutual I love yous or whatever, and then immediately after the hot Rachel and Miles shower sex flashback scene, Tate and Miles have sex for the first time, and I like was curious about how you felt about this parallel, like having those scenes juxtaposed.
I don't think I really picked up on that.
This happened frequently where like events would happen with Miles and Rachel, and then the next chapter with Miles and Tate would be something very similar.
I think that just went right over my head. Honestly.
Yeah. I'm just like, my question was like, is it establishing like Rachel and Tate as both like soulmates for Miles, just at different points in his life? It is establishing Tate as like a replacement for Rachel or just like a stand-in. I don't know. I was like,
maybe I
wasn't like, exactly sure like how it worked.
Well, I think it's like both soulmates, but like he's getting a second chance with like a different ending. But maybe also to like drive home why he's so like scared of it happening again, because it's also similar and it could end the same way.
Yeah, the relationship has a lot of triggers.
And also because there's that question that Ian asks him at the end and that he like has asked himself a lot. It's like, if you could go back and like undo everything that happened, but you would like forget every good thing with Rachel, would you do it? And he's like, you know, if you had asked him that like a few months ago, he would have definitely said yes. But like now that he's essentially going through it again with Tate, he would say no, maybe.
He says maybe, yeah. He can't definitely say no, but Ian is like the fact that you can even say maybe.
Right.
It's like showing that you healed. Which also just, damn, Miles needs therapy.
I know.
We never, like, God, I know I always say that heroes really need therapy, but in this situation, like, this poor man
And it's
really needs therapy.
And it's yet another thing that his dad like
doesn't put him
it's
in
on
therapy.
him. Like,
I mean, well, I guess here's the thing. Miles is already in flight school at this point, and also at the point that he like loses his son, and he's also an adult. So technically
he's
the
moved
dad
back.
Like, can't.
He's an adult in name only. He moved back home. Like they very briefly move out, but as soon, he moves right back. So like, no, he's a child.
Yeah, the dad's shit. But what I thought was interesting is like the shower sex scene is fade to black. But the Tate and Miles sex scene is like explicit. And it's like one of the only ones. Like they have sex a lot, but we usually like don't get a full scene.
Get at least like 3.
But just for some reason, I would say this is a pretty steamy book. But for me, it was like interesting because the Rachel and Miles sex scene was like hotter for me, which I felt a little bit icky about because I was like, they're in high school. I was like, well, they're technically 18, so like I don't have to feel like a total creep. But like just for me, I was like, I don't know
really?
Why exactly.
No, I disagree because I think I was just like thinking of it from the perspective if I was their age, and like at that point I would have been like so much more awkward, and I was like, they are both so awkward right now. I just know, like, even though like
neither of them are virgins. That's the thing. Like,
that's
I
true.
was a virgin at that age.
Yeah, for sure. But still, like,
I think it's because I'm thinking about it now. Like maybe it's because of the emotional intimacy. Like Rachel and Miles are having the hot shower sex and like are saying I love you, and they're planning a future together. And so there's much more of that emotional component, whereas like Miles and Tate are just like, it's just the physical. And so it's hard. I think for me, a lot sex scenes almost always, in order to like really work for me, like, listen, I love like just a straight up like, hot banging, no ties attached scene as much as the next person. But I think a lot of times like the best sex scenes, and I think particularly because they were in such stark contrast to each other, the emotional component was like, I was like, oh, I prefer the previous one.
Fair enough.
Oh, Tate also, Miles also doesn't make eye contact during sex.
Oh yeah.
And at this point I was like, oh my God, is he imagining Rachel? But he's not. His whole explanation is like, you have like an emotional connection when you make eye contact, and like I don't want that, which is again a fuckboy thing to say.
Around this time, Tate also starts talking about she starts making friends with Cap, the old man who runs the elevators.
Yeah.
He's Cap because he's like a captain. He's the captain of the elevators. And a lot of pilots live in the building, so like I don't know. And at one point, like he's like, "Oh, are you and Miles bumping uglies?" I'm like, "There's no way Cap would know the like, okay.
No, I can imagine that being like something, like an older person is trying to like get with the slang. So they're like bonding. And she goes down like after they have sex for the first time. Miles basically like kicks her out of the apartment, and she can't go back in her own apartment because like she snuck out, and she hears Corbin like has gotten up again and is talking on the phone. So she's like, shit, he can't know that I've been out. So she goes downstairs and hangs out with Cap, and it's very cute.
Yeah.
But the next day, Miles is like, do you want to run an errand with me? Which is, again, an example of like, I don't want a relationship, but like, let's decorate my house together.
Right. He immediately starts like, because it's like very, it seems to me very clear that's because she like shit, like, ragged on him a little bit for not having any, like,
it's very much like she's even like, oh, like he's decorating his house because of me. Yeah. So they go and buy like, I don't know, curtains and like a throw pillow or something. I don't know. They buy like essentials, and they also make out in the furniture store.
And they also like on the way in, she like sees a homeless man. This is another thing that was very 2014, I thought. Just like she goes in this little like soapbox in her head about how like addiction is an illness, and like I mean I guess there's still people that don't think that today, but like she's like, Corbin's always like, people will just use the money for drugs, but I think addiction's an illness. And I'm like, all right, like gold star, great.
Yeah, it felt, I was like, listen, I appreciate this, like,
you're not wrong, but
the same way that like Stephanie Meyer's including her little like environmentally friendly thing. I'm like, like the spirit was there, he's got the spirit in him, but like it's weird. It's like a very random occurrence to have in this middle of this book. But
and then Miles like buys an extra, I think, blanket and like gives it to the man on the way out.
Yeah. So. And she's like, wow, like I know he like did it for me, but also like I love that he didn't do it for me, that he just like is a nice person who does that. And I was like, okay. I guess maybe this is like Colleen Hoover being like, hey, he's he's an empathetic person. I promise.
Right.
I promise. Like, hang on. Like, there is some of that original Miles left. Like,
right.
I promise. I know you got 50% of the book more to go, but like, I swear to God, this is going to end well.
Yeah. So then he like leaves for like 9 days or something.
No. They christen the rug. You forgot.
Oh, yeah.
He buys a rug and he puts it in the apartment. And she's like, why don't you put it under the couch, like, you know, half under the couch or whatever? And he's like, because I want to christen it first. So they like fuck on the rug. Like a lot.
Yeah. And then he leaves for 9 days or something because he's a pilot. And the next time she sees him is Corbin invites her out to dinner with them and what?
There's a flashback between those points.
Okay.
When we find out Rachel is pregnant. That's the only thing.
Sure.
Rachel's so, like, I'm expecting.
Rachel says she's pregnant and Miles, like, they're supposed to go to school that day, but he's like, you can skip school and I'm going out. And then he like goes out and he's like frantically like figuring out, you know, their future. And he gets like community college brochures and like pilot stuff and like figures out like housing that they can live in. But he leaves her alone the entire day. And then he comes back and she's like, you can just break up with me if you want. Like, I know you're like mad. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, I was like, here's all the brochures. But I'm like, why would you just like, why couldn't she come with you? You're both skipping school. Why?
Well, I get, like, she's like, they've just confirmed she's pregnant and like she's freaking out. So he's like, you take a nap. I'm going to go out. But yeah, I thought this was so good. He was like, what? And he pulls out like a whole packet of brochures. Yeah. He's like, look, I've planned out our life together. Like, we can apply for family housing and like you can get a scholarship here and I'm going to go to flight school and like it's going to be great. It's very cute. But yeah, he's such a little boy.
Okay, so then present day, Miles is – I keep like mixing up Miles and Corbin. They both have like eyes in them. It's throwing me off. I don't know why.
I keep mixing up Miles and Tate.
Yeah, that also. Because both of those are like arguably gender neutral names. Like Miles to a lesser extent, but like the same vibe.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's back. And Corbin invites Tate out to dinner with him and Ian and Miles. And maybe Dylan is still in there. I don't know. And she doesn't find out until they don't tell her that they're going to celebrate. They're celebrating Miles's promotion to captain. I don't know why. It's just like Corbin is just like very bad at like communicating. He just like drags Tate along and like doesn't tell her just in general. Yeah, he's very like random.
At least he's trying to include her. Like, yeah, you know.
And this is when I first realized that Ian was the like same Ian as from high school.
Yeah,
like I didn't make that connection. But this is when I realized when I made this connection, I was like, oh, Tate is totally going to find out the background from Ian, isn't she? Like that's going to be the source, but he wasn't.
No, Miles does tell her, which I.
Why didn't Tate become a pilot? She's like, oh, my whole family's pilots. Whatever.
It's stress. Listen, I know that like being a pilot is good money, but like it seems very stressful.
Oh, I know, but she just goes on and on about how it's like her heritage and like her family, and she grew up in that. But I'm like, why? Girls can become pilots if you want.
Like, listen, she's in the medical profession. She's getting
very different than a pilot. I'm not saying her job is bad. I'm just saying like from the amount of emphasis we get on
they can't all be pilots,
I guess. But like why? Whatever. I also wrote just like periodically was like Corbin is still a non-asshole. I just like kept checking up on that.
Just to figure out. Check. Good to know.
Yeah. And then she like then this is again she asks, why do you all hate Dylan so much? Like, isn't it obvious? I don't understand.
They're like, I don't know. They spend the whole dinner making like sleep sexual innuendos. They're like, oh, I'm so tired. I just want to go home and sleep. Yeah. Like, and Corbin like does not pick up on this, despite the fact that they're being so obvious. And he's like, fine, Ian and I are gonna go to the bar. Like, you guys go home and sleep. Oh, Tate, you drove here. Like, why don't you drive Miles home? Yeah. And I'm like, you're like, what are you doing, bro? Like, Corbin, did you get hit in the head with like a brick before this? Like, do you have a concussion? Is this why like you're incapable of like seeing that they clearly want to fuck? Because even Ian, I'm pretty sure, is like, bro. Like, Ian is like staring at them suspiciously across the table the whole time. So I'm like, it's definitely obvious that something's happening.
Because Corbin like has spent this whole time thinking that Miles is gay, and then now thinks that he's just like asexual, maybe. Like he just like thinks of him as such a non person that would hit on his sister.
But he's supposed to be like the overprotective brother, so you would think that he would be like, I don't know, whatever. So Corbin and Ian go off to the bar, and Miles and Tate start walking home, or walking to her car, and it starts raining. No, what were you gonna say?
Nothing. I was just gonna continue the Corbin thing and be like, he does have like his overprotectiveness didn't come out of nowhere. He does have like a good reason. It's because her first boyfriend was one of his like best friends, and was like a little bit older than her, obviously, because it was his friend. And then he ended up like cheating on her with a bunch of girls, and she was like heartbroken. And Corbin like had to cut the guy off and like end the friendship. So it's not like, yeah, he has
he's
like
not just like, yeah, it's again like he's not like, oh, my poor virginal sister,
right?
She can't be despoiled. He's like, I don't want anyone to emotionally hurt someone that I care about, which is fair,
especially if it was someone that you thought was a good friend, and then they did that. You know, like that's also like would make you wary going forward potentially.
Yeah. So Corbin and Ian go to the bar, and Tate and Miles are walking to Tate's car. I'm gonna fuck up her name for this whole episode. I just know it. And it starts to rain, and they make out in the rain, and then they get in her car, and they have car sex, and they have I really like this scene. They have a little competition over like who can be the quietest, because they're both like, oh, you're the loudest. And then they have a little competition. And then finally, like, Tate moans. And then, so they just both purposely keep silent until they don't. And then they like really, I don't know. And I just like,
that was
usually
ruined.
It could be cringy, but like I digged it.
No, it was ruined for me because it starts off. So what you forgot to mention is that they are in her employer's parking lot right now.
Yeah.
She walked to the bar from work, and he's like, don't be so loud so you don't get fired. Ha ha ha. And I'm like, that isn't fucking funny. She could actually get fired. You are literally on company property. Anyone could walk by. You're not funny.
It's raining really hard.
No,
so you
but
can't
still,
hear them
just that joke is very poor taste. Maybe I'm being too like, whatever. Also, she's
Stop
like
being a prude. Listen, here's the
difference
between you and me is that you're like, oh, they can't. It's like terrible that they're having sex in her employer's parking lot.
No.
Meanwhile, I'm over here being like, when are Miles and Tate going to join the Mile High Club?
No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that's not the part that I specifically take issue with. I take issue with his selfishness and joking about like if it had been his employer and he was like, don't be so loud so I don't get fired, that's one thing. I don't know. I don't know. Just a personal.
It's like dirty talk.
It's selfishness.
I see
He's
it.
selfish.
No.
Also, she's like, I find myself comparing the feel and smell of brand new rain to his kiss. His kiss is much, much better. Huge missed opportunity to use the word petrichor that we learned from The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood.
Well,
petrichor.
To be fair, this came out in 2014, so maybe like the word petrichor just hadn't been invented yet. It wasn't invented until Ali Hazelwood used it in The Love Hypothesis
in 2021. I also like how long it took for her to figure out that Miles and Smiles rhyme, and she also starts doing that like Miles smiles for no one else, Smiles only smiles for me, and that is a parallel I noticed because that mimics the like Rachel talking like Rachel. I can't even like make it up.
Like
on the
Rachel,
spot,
like whatever. Yeah, I forget.
Rachel
they both do like
Rachel loves only me.
Words.
Yeah.
Like with word, like, oh, that's my new favorite word. Like when they say when like their love interest says it.
Yeah. Also, we definitely jumped the gun on the flashback because after this, I'm like, they don't even consider getting an abortion. Like that's not even on the table.
No. Oh, but I do have. Oh, yeah. No. So they don't consider getting an abortion, but shitty Lisa, the mom, in a future flashback, it's like we'll take care of it, like implying that like I'm gonna make Rachel get an abortion, and then Miles is like, it's too late. Like she's 3 months along.
Well, that makes me wonder if. Maybe like did they just wait so long to tell the parents that it became too late, or did they not find out until it was too late? Because maybe that's why they waited a while.
They're like, we should tell the parents she's starting to show. Like it's been
maybe when they find out it was already too late, and that's why they don't consider.
No, because it's like the first trimester. Like I don't know. It's definitely been like months that they're keeping this a secret.
Right, but she could find out. I don't know what the cutoff. It depends on the state, but like, let's say they find out when she's 4 months. Like, she's a teenager. She could easily have whatever. It doesn't matter. But point of the thing is, I don't know.
Yeah, she has another bonding moment with Cap after this. Like they go home and have more sex, whatever. Not her and Cap, Miles and Tate. And then like later at some point she's like bonding with Cap, like they're eating pizza together or whatever. And Cap is like telling her about his like the love of his life, who was like married to a shitty man and like couldn't divorce him because it was like the 50s or whatever. And at this point I was like, is Cap the Christmas magic man? Because like I was getting strong Christmas magic man.
But it's kind of he kind of is. Like we find out. Yeah. I don't know. I'm really glad the Cap doesn't die. I was afraid that he was gonna die.
Yeah. Well, I was like at one point I was kind of like hoping. I was like, I kind of want just like a spin-off where it's just like a Man Called Ove, but like with Cap and like Tate, you know what I mean? Like something like that. But like also again, he doesn't die at the end.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert for A Man Called Ove.
Oh. Yeah. Also where he gets like a modern day romance. I would like that. Not just like in the past, you know, like a happy romance, not like the tragic. Because like I try not to think about that too much because if I thought about it too much, it would make me sad. Like I try not to dwell on Cap's backstory too much.
But Cap is like, he tells a story in order to like tell Tate where he's like, oh, his spirit has been broken. Is that at this point?
I'm not sure.
Okay. At some point, Cap tells Tate, and I'll probably come to my part in the notes where this actually happens. But at some point, Cap is like, he's talking to Tate about Miles, and he's like his spirit, maybe his spirit was just broken. And it's like, not that he doesn't want to love you. It's that like, he just like
can't.
We have another game night.
We have another game night. And this is yet another time that so she's making a sandwich for herself and Cap, and Dylan comes in and is a super fucking creep and starts like basically groping her. Like he's like basically like boxing her in the fridge and like, you know, being super creepy.
I just wanted her to knee him in the balls. That's what I was waiting for, the dad to get punched and for Dylan to get kneed in the balls.
But instead, Miles comes in and he's like, get away from her. And Tate's like, I wanted to step in and defend Dylan for a second. And it almost immediately, yeah, she fucking says that. She's like, because I don't know what, because she had been making the sandwich and she turned around. She thought it was going to be Miles coming in. So she like smiled, but it was actually Dylan. And she's like, oh, it's not his fault. He thought I was flirting with him. And I'm like, that does not give him the right, like, girl. Also, like, why are you defending? You already know he's an asshole no matter what. It doesn't matter that you smile. Like, what? And yeah, but then like Dylan like is an asshole after that. And she's like, I can't believe I considered defending him. But like, why does she keep like questioning? Like, I don't understand. So
Corbin comes in and he's like, what's going on? And Miles is like, he was hitting on your sister. And then Corbin is like, get the fuck out of my place. And I'm like, see, did you see how easy it was to tell him that he couldn't come in? You could have been doing this the whole fucking time.
Right.
Whatever. Tate goes to study in Miles' apartment again. He brings her like a few slices of pizza because she hasn't eaten yet because she didn't get to eat her sandwiches because of Dylan. And she's like, wow, oh my God, he's so nice. And I'm like, girl, that's the bare minimum.
He didn't even bring her an array of sodas to choose from. He's orange juice, though. She doesn't need an array.
Yeah. But like, I'm like, ma'am, he kicked you out of your house and is bringing you a slice of pizza on like a plate across the hall. This is the bare minimum. Tate, you deserve better. And like, listen, I recognize that Miles, by the end of the book, I believe that Miles would not only bring her the whole pizza, but also an array of sodas to choose, also an array of different orange juice brands to choose from.
Like pulp, no pulp, low pulp.
Yeah, like Florida's
purple
natural,
pulp.
like Sunny D. Like, yeah, he would bring her an array of orange juice to choose
Tang.
from.
Tang has been discontinued for 20 years, but he would dig up some Tang.
Maybe even like throw in like an orange Fanta just to switch things up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so by the end, Miles would definitely do that. But at this point, I'm like, girl, no, accept more. This is why we need romance novels, because we have been trained to accept like the bare minimum.
That's what I'm saying.
And then anytime we're like, oh, I want more, they're like, that's unrealistic. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What about like being like honest and loving and like emotionally vulnerable and trustworthy? And like also, if sex is important to you, like being able to make your partner come. Like, what about which one of those things, tell me, is like unrealistic? Like,
the problem is that this book is too realistic and it's like setting people up to expect like that will end well.
Yeah,
I have no problem with like hiring the standards, raising the standards.
I just like, every time like I hear a man say that, I'm like, okay, so like which of those is too much for you exactly?
Mm-hmm.
Like what? No, like tell me, like, are you not loving? Or do you not know where the clitoris is? Like which is too much? Whatever.
The only fair criticism is like everyone being like 6'8", but
anyway, he comes back after the game is over and he's like, we'll tell Corbin that you fell asleep, so you don't have to go back so we can have sex. But then he's like, oh, you're so tired. Like, we shouldn't have sex. Like, you know what I mean? And she, as another situation where she's like, oh, wow, he's so nice. He's so thoughtful. And I'm like, girl, listen, I'm not blaming Tate. I'm blaming the patriarchy. But I'm like, this is, again, your partner being like, seeing that you're exhausted and being like, yes, you should sleep. I will not demand sexual favors from you tonight. Bare minimum. Bare minimum. He's obsessed with using condoms. He's like, really, because like, you know, obviously we know why.
Yeah.
Or we don't know why at this point, but like you all know why because we spoiled it for you. But she's like, oh, we don't have to use a condom. Like, I'm on the pill. And then I'm like, at this point, I was like, oh, she's definitely going to get pregnant. She doesn't. There's no accidental pregnancy. And then Miles fucks her against the table, which would be hot, except he immediately runs away and makes her cry.
Well, no. Wait. So I forget why. How did they get into this situation? Basically, he like doesn't want to do it, and he's like, "Don't, Tate," and she's like, "His voice is a warning or a dare," and I'm like, "No, I'm pretty sure it's just a warning." He's like, "Don't fucking do that." Like, I think she's in the wrong there. Like, he's like, "I do not want to do this without a condom," and she still is like. But I forget how they get into this like position.
No, he's like, if he's saying don't, he's like, oh no, we shouldn't have sex. But he's like, I don't have a condom, and she's like, it's okay, like I'm on the pill, and then he just goes for it.
No,
and
she's
like, she's laying like face down on the table at this point, so it is all Miles.
But I think he like thinks he has one or something, then realize like is rummaging and like realize he doesn't have it, and he's like, don't do it, and he like doesn't move, but she is the one who like makes it happen.
Oh, he's got like at her dick like at
right.
his dick at like her entrance
right.
or something, and she like pushes back.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, don't.
Her vision.
She's like, is it a warning? Is it a warning or a dare? And I'm like, it's a warning. Stop it.
Like, respect your partners.
Yeah.
But anyway, he makes her cry. He runs away and he makes her cry right afterward.
And she like walks away and she's like, I'm done at this point, right? And then he leaves her a note.
No. They haven't broken up.
No. Okay, yeah.
They're about to break up. Okay.
Right.
So he like runs. He's like, want to run an errand with me, and she's like, rightfully.
I don't remember what it says.
Oh yeah, you're right.
All I have written is note equals gas lady.
Yeah, so he sticks a note to her door. He's like, want to run an errand at noon or something?
Yeah, as if nothing happened. Yeah, it's like, okay.
Yeah. And she's rightfully pissed off. And they're in the elevator, and he apologizes, and he like presses the emergency stop button.
Oh yeah, classic.
And he's like, move. I don't know how to be in a relationship. And I'm like, that's not good enough, boo. You're going to have to give me something more than this for me to be on your side, Miles. Mm-hmm. But then they drive to the airport, and he breaks up with her because he's like, you expect a future and I can't give it to you. And I'm like, you need therapy, and a therapist could give that to you. You probably have good health insurance because you work for an airline.
Right.
Yeah.
I like how his car is described as simple instead of a make or model. I like that. So yeah, it's not exactly him saying like, we're done. He's like, if you can't accept that like nothing's going to happen, like we have to stop. And she's like, yeah, I can't. Like, I'm done. So she says like, no, it's like too much. It's hurting me.
She's like, what did I do wrong? And I'm like, girl, you did nothing wrong.
I know.
Nothing. You've done nothing wrong.
She's like, I love how good our good moments are. And I know how easily the bad ones would go away if you stopped trying to fight this. And like, this is yet another thing. Like, no, that's never going to stop that. That's if you are in a situation where a person is making you feel shitty, and the reason you justify it is because you're like, oh, but the good is so good. Like, no.
That's a cycle of abuse, babe.
Right. That's exactly. I mean, I'm sorry. I know you can't just like snap out of it, but like,
yeah,
that's why I think
there's
like
a lot of reasons that
that's why I was like
abusive relationships, but
right. I mean, but that's why this book is like, of any of the books I've read, this is the one that has the most potential to be like actively harmful because it's just so again on the nose. Like,
yeah, no, but yeah, a lot. I like really wanted her to like push him out of the car. But like instead he just drives her home. She's like, why can't you have a future with us? Like, tell me that like you don't want a future. And then he like is like, and then he like, she's like, tell me you don't want a future, or you want a future, or like drive me home. And then he just like quietly starts the car and starts driving her home.
Right.
But I just like, I really wanted her to like, I don't know, pull the emergency brake and then just like drop kick him out of the car like Steve Carell and the fucking Crazy Stupid Love.
And
like that's what I wanted from this.
Right. And this is the point at which he loses any plausible deniability of like thinking that this was still working for both of them, you know?
Yeah.
Like he knows he has no excuse not to know that he's actively hurting her, and he's still selfish enough to continue.
He's being a little dick. Again, he needs therapy. He needs a lot of therapy.
Sure. I'm still amazed. Even now, just like talking through it, I'm like getting back into the same like route. And somehow I like got over it, but
she pulls it off. She's a goddamn
she really
wizard.
does. Yeah. But like I don't think my notes are gonna have the same effect on me as listening to the scene.
She spills her heart to Cap. And I want her and Cap to like double team on beating up Miles. Like I want her to push Miles out of the car, and then like Cap to give him the old 1-2.
Right. And I wrote down like, does Cap know about Miles or no? Or is it just vibes? Like how does he like know? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And at this point is when I wrote the big note about like, Tate recognizes that she's like been waiting for Miles to realize that he just needs to fall in love with her, and like she recognizes that like that's bad and like she shouldn't do it. But then there's also the converse, like the overall message of the book is still very much like, well, you can just wait and eventually he'll confess his trauma and then you'll all be happy. And yeah, I don't want to be like the romance novels are unrealistic police, because I think that's bullshit. And again, people who generally say that are people that can't find the clitoris. But yeah, I'm just like, yeah, I trust that people, but I also think that this is a type of book that I think that I may have read as like a middle schooler, because there were like these YA books that I read. This isn't YA, but called like Crank and Dust, and they were just about like drugs and like Mormonism, and they were written this weird like poetry style. I don't know, but they were like very explicit, and those are like very, I think, negatively influential, just because I just like didn't really fully comprehend like how toxic these relationships were at the time. And I think this is like a type of book that if I had like read it then, I'd be like, you know,
right, yeah,
like, oh, you can change him.
Right.
But yeah. But I also recognize, again, romance readers are capable of distinguishing fact and fiction. Like, you don't tell, you know, murder mystery fans, like, well, now don't go out and kill anyone. You know, you trust that, like, they're not going to fucking kill someone at the end.
But at the same, like, yes. No, I agree. It's just that with most romance novels and most murder mysteries, you're never going to find yourself in an identical situation. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. Even if you think that is how a murder, like, you know, how that will go. Like, you're never going to be put to the test, you know? And same thing as, like, reading a Regency that has this kind of plot line. Like, you're never going to be a Regency
in that
heroine. Yeah. But like, a lot of people will be in this situation.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm also amazed at Tate's ability to focus on homework and like studying at the drop of a hat throughout this. Like, even
she's
like
so competent.
She's just able to like turn it on and off like at will. If only.
So now we get a very important flashback in which Rachel and Miles tell their shitty parents. But parents are like, we're going to tell you something. And Miles and Rachel are like, we got to tell you something too. And then the parents are like, we're going to go first. We got married in Vegas, which I'm like, oh my God. Oh my, first you don't tell them they're dating. You don't even invite your children to the wedding. Like, they're such shitty parents. I know. And then Miles is like, Rachel's pregnant. And the dad is like, how dare this boy abandon her and make her tell her parents with her brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Miles is like, she's not my sister. And his dad is like, and then Miles is like, I'm the dad. And then the dad fucking punches Miles in the face and then is like, get out of my house. And it's like he's never called out on this. Like, he's never.
No.
What? You just punched your child in the face, and this is never. So he never apologizes for it. He's never confronted. Like, I hate him. Anyway, but Miles does it. I was very proud of Miles at this point. Yeah. Miles walks out. He's like, I'm going to say Ian's, and then he's like, wait, fuck that, and he like runs back in, and he's like, fuck you. Rachel and I are in love, and she's pregnant, and there's nothing you can do about it, dick. And I'm staying.
And he like locks himself in the room with Rachel. Yeah.
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 Anyway, the parents are shit. Just once again, like, the parents are shit.
Yeah.
But also I recognize that, like,
it's a tough situation.
Like, I mean, they're shit because they did all these things.
They caused the situation.
They caused the situation. Like, they did all these things without including their children in decisions that ultimately affect their lives as well.
Yeah.
But also, like, I recognize, like, if I had just gotten married to my boyfriend and I came home and my teenage daughter told me that, like, basically her new stepbrother had impregnated her 3 months earlier and that they'd been fucking this whole time, I'd be like,
oh my God.
You know, my head would explode as well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't hit my child, but I can understand like not being able to respond to that in like a way that wasn't like angry or upset.
Right. Yeah. Lord. So Tate in the modern day has her this is when she has her study partner come over. And
Chad.
Usually Chad. Yeah, usually it's like also a girl, but she's sick. It doesn't matter. Chad comes over. They spend like a few hours like just literally studying in her room, and then when she goes to open the door for him, she sees Miles. Miles like sees him going in, and when he leaves, Miles I guess has been like standing at the door like peephole this entire time, like waiting, and he immediately goes over and he's like, "Tell me to leave." And this just pissed me off so much. This is the, I mean, again, the point of no return was already crossed. But at this point I was like, no, you're the one who needs to leave. You're coming in and acting all jealous. You have no right to be. What if she actually was moving on? Like, you're going to ruin that? You're such a selfish asshole.
Tate feels guilty. Like, when she sees that Miles sees Chad, she's like, oh, I feel guilty. And I'm like, no, first of all, you're not even hooking up with him. Second of all, it's none of Miles's business if you are.
Right. It's just so manipulative on his part. Like, he just completely crossed the point of like, of being like all high and mighty and being like, oh, well, we agreed to this. There's arrangement. Like, she has no right to be like, no. She 100% no arguments. Like, you are completely in the wrong here. You're an asshole. You're selfish. I just like, if you are willing to cause pain to someone, you don't actually care about them. That's like the lesson to take away here in the real world.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. That level of pain. Because I don't accept the premise that like, if you care about someone, there's no way you can cause them pain. Because
no, that's not what I mean. I just mean like, you're actively causing them pain and there's no good reason for it except for your own like, selfish, like,
like long term. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like if you cause someone pain even on purpose, and then like afterward you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, and or like you stop the behavior,
right?
But like, yeah, he's doing it like long term,
right? I'm sure I just made a very general statement that applies to this situation. I'm sure I've not thought this through of like every possible meaning of that, but like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're like a doctor and you're like in the wilderness operating, cutting off your leg. Okay.
That's a little bit different.
Sure.
But Miles asked Tate, he's like, what should I do? And I'm like, the only correct answer to this is that you should go to therapy, but instead they have sex. So great.
Yeah. See, again, 2014. She's a nurse. She's down with the addiction as an illness. She's not yet down with the go to therapy.
Anyway, the next day they walk out and Corbin, who they thought was away, is like standing outside their bedroom door, and it's implied that he heard them fuck the whole night. But he confronts Miles and he's like, do you love my sister? And Miles is like, no. And Tate is like, oh no, this is such a shock. And then Miles like leaves. Also, I realized that this is another parallel scene of like someone finding out about Miles's like secret relationship and telling Miles to leave. But in this case, like, Miles actually does leave. He doesn't come back. The way he comes back for Rachel.
Oh, yeah, true. But like, he shouldn't be coming back.
No, I understand that. But it's like, I'm saying there's that parallel there. Yeah. And I think she's very purposeful about her, like, the differences in her parallel scenes like this.
Maybe, yeah.
Like point. The same way with like the sex scenes, like there was like the I love you shower sex and there was like the emotionally distant.
No, I mean, you're right. Fucking. I just didn't realize it originally. Yeah. Okay. So what's next? The pool?
Oh, no. Before that, she like goes over and she's like, what the fuck again? And he's like, I'll never love anyone again. And Tate interprets this as like, oh, but he did love someone at some point, which means he could love me, maybe. And I'm like, girl, the mental gymnastics that you are doing for this man, he ain't worth it.
No.
Don't.
No. And he's like, I don't know if this is the point at which he says it or if it's later. I just have a bunch of damning quotes written down from him. He's like,
I think we've established that he's like,
I know I'm messing with your head and I know I've hurt you and I'm sorry for that. You're obviously not sorry enough. I'm scared you're seeing it for more than it is. She literally said she was and doesn't want to be with you if it's not. And yet, what you're here.
Ma'am. Yeah.
And she's like, every single one of his admissions is a red flag, but a red flag doesn't rise. A green one does. This is textbook manipulation, girl.
Tate needs therapy too. They go like have like a little date on the heated pool on the roof,
which I would also be. I can't believe no one told her about this until now.
Yeah,
I would be
God, that's amazing.
She's like, I can't believe you lived here for like 4 years, and my brothers lived here for like years and never told me about this.
Nobody ever told me about it. Yeah, and I think this is another parallel because we have a flashback of like Rachel and Miles graduating and then like planning their future together and like moving in together, and like it's this like juxtaposition of like him planning a future with Rachel and then having like when he won't with Tate.
Yeah, they had their little like pool toe-to-toe and she just like decides to like lie and be like, oh no, I'm totally fine, like and And he's like, I'm not worried about it becoming too hard for me. I'm worried about it becoming too hard for you. And I'm like, it's not hard for him, because he doesn't care about you. That's why it's not hard for him.
Yeah.
So whatever. And then he's like, I can't tell if you're really mature for your age or really delusional. And then I was like, how old is Miles? Like, what do you mean old for your age? You wouldn't say that to a person who's like basically your same age.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then she's like, I'd rather fall in love with an emotionally stable man someday. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen if you keep it up with this dickhead.
Like, ma'am.
Drop him.
Yeah.
I think this is like during the Cap, when she's talking to Cap. I don't know how this comes up, but like Dylan is like has been an asshole to Cap at least once before that we've seen. And Tate is like, I guess Cap doesn't like Dylan either. I'm beginning to feel a little bad for Dylan. Like, this is when she takes it back. She's like that's when Dylan comes in, he's an asshole. I'm like, why? This is throughout the book. She's not able to like keep this like memory, this thought in her head. Like, Dylan is a dick. Every time she's like,
I mean, it's very in character with her, because she keeps giving Miles second chance. She's like way too empathetic for her own good, which I guess like makes her a good nurse, that she can like be that empathetic to people.
Yeah. And this whole time I'm like, why doesn't Miles like, why don't you just have one night stands? That would be like the clear solution to this.
Pregnant.
But like, be an actual fuckboy. Just have one night stands. Don't be like, stop pulling this bullshit. Just like, stop it.
Yeah. Anyway, so we get a flashback. Rachel is giving birth. She has given birth, and they have a son, and his name is Clayton, after the teacher that like he showed her to class the first time that they met. And the teacher's name was Mr. Clayton. So they named him Clayton. However, was a little bit ruined for me because of The Bachelor currently.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stop thinking of like this Clayton, but like with his head on a baby's body.
Yeah.
Like that's what I was imagining, which like a little bit ruined it for me. But like it's very cute, like objectively.
And then they like have this scene where he's about to be circumcised. And they're like joking. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to die in a fucking circumcision accident, because that happens, people. Circumcision. I've like research. I've done like deep dives on this like a few times, and I just like have come to the conclusion that circumcision is fucking stupid. I'm willing to be convinced that it's not, unless it's for like religious reasons. I don't understand why everyone does it. It just seems so stupid.
It's just genital mutilation.
It's genital mutilation, but it's so arguably maybe there are like very minor health benefits, but I feel like those benefits are completely erased by any risk of death. You know what I mean? Like, if there's any risk of death, like the minor non-life-threatening health benefits are like, bye-bye. Like, no, thank you. Anyway.
Yeah, I do understand it's like a religious thing.
Sure, but like outside of that,
people,
but it's like only everyone does it in America, right? Like, it's not a thing that like
Europe
everyone in Europe
do
does.
It.
Right.
No. Only like 20% of Europeans do it, whereas like 80% of Americans do. Or no, I'm sorry. I don't know what I think the current percentage of Americans is like
it's
60,
dropping,
but in the 80s, it was a high of 85% of Americans. Wild.
Just wild.
Anyway, there's a plane crash.
Oh, yeah.
There's a plane crash, and they're like, oh no, is Corbin dead? And then she's like, oh no, is Miles dead? And then she knocks on Miles's door, and Miles is not dead, but she's like, we can't get in contact with Corbin. And then he like calls all his airplane contacts, and he confirms that Corbin is not dead. And for some reason Corbin didn't tell his family, because he's like, oh, I didn't know it was on the news. And I'm like, bro. Anyway,
and
Corbin
she like
comes back. Nobody is dead except for random
people. And she's also like, oh, there was another plane crash like this. I remember it happened when I was 6, and how like upset my mom was. But like, for the record, I don't think there have been any fatal commercial plane crashes in the US for like decades. Like, certainly
maybe
not.
He's international.
No. Oh, that's true. Yeah, good point. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah. So then they have sex again, and I was like, this is cute. He tries to rip off her underwear, and he can't do it. Like, it's too strong. Yeah. And they're like, there's just a cute moment where they're like, wow, this always like works in like the movies, but it is not working now. She's like, it like hurts because the elastic is like digging into my side, and she's like, you know what? I'm just gonna take them off. Like, I'm just gonna take them off right now. And I thought that was a cute moment.
I do like that Cap, the old man, always refers to him as the boy. But I hope that, I had to call my brother, our brother that, but I hope that Stefan would never behave like this. So they fall asleep together for the first time, and she like wakes up in the middle of the night. She hears him on the phone, and he is calling his dad to be like, and like, she's like worried that it's another girl. Yeah, but it's his dad. He's like, I love you, Dad. And I was like, damn it. I was hoping the dad was dead. Oh yeah, I know. I thought they were.
The reason the dad wasn't in the picture was because he was dead.
I assumed they were just like estranged because he didn't go home for Thanksgiving.
Oh, I really wanted him to be dead. Unfortunately, he's not.
And we just get like, more wallowing. She's like, I think about all the other things I'm giving up to be with him. Still haven't figured out a way to say no to him. He hides. And when he calls the dad, she's like, he hides so much from me so that when I finally break, it won't be his fault. I'm like, it will absolutely be his fault.
Ma'am. This is when we skipped ahead. This is when they go to
the pool. And he's like, if I ask you a question, will you be honest with me? And she does the wise thing. She's like, I shrug because there's no way I'm answering that with a yes until I hear the question. Bella Swan, take notes. This is how you avoid random promises that you feel you have to keep. Alternatively, you could just make the random promises but not feel any obligation to keep them.
But so before the actual rooftop swimming pool happens, there's a flashback where this is when the circumcision happens, but then Miles and his dad also like make up. His dad's like, oh, I'm sorry. And then he's like, I need to explain about your mom and Lisa. And then like the flashback cuts off and I'm like, Colleen Hoover, you little tease. I want to know. So yeah, then we get the swimming scene and I was like, okay, fine. And then we get the next flashback where we learn like about the history between like the dad and the mom and Lisa. And I'm like, he's like, I didn't say anything because I didn't think that you would figure it out and I didn't want to bring it up. And I'm like, you dumbass.
I know.
You huge dumbass. Like, what? Like,
there's just an astounding year. None of these people know how to communicate.
Since he knew about Lisa. And you never once.
Especially once he knows how close he and Rachel are. Like, they're definitely talking. You know? Like, at no point Rachel would be like, oh yeah, when I first met your dad.
Oh my God.
I know.
He's so dumb. And I'm like, you're still a shitty parent. Like, for that and all the other terrible things you do to your son. Over the course of these flashbacks.
Like, it's not focused on at all, but he also did like lose his mom very recently.
Yes.
Like, it's not really like played up, but like this kid is half an orphan and like you're his only remaining.
Miles needed therapy before now, but he definitely needed therapy afterward.
I know. So
okay. So Tate's moving out of Corbin's apartment and she goes to say goodbye. She's like finally got her own place and she goes to say goodbye to Miles. And then he won't even say that like he missed her because he's been away on like a job for a week or whatever. And she's like, she's like, I miss you is not like a relationship thing. It's literally just a thing that like people who like know each other say, you know, like she's like, it's a friend thing. It's like whatever. And he's like, but we were never friends. Because this is like his favorite refrain. He's like, we weren't friends beforehand, so it won't ruin our friendship. And I'm like, you shut up. Yeah. And Tate finally stands up for himself and then Miles starts to cry and then she's like,
so manipulative. He's like, what am I doing to you, Tate? Like, if you're so worried about her, why are you crying and making it about you? Like, stop it.
I'm like, sir, you know what you're doing? Leaving her the fuck alone. That's what you should do. So they break up and now we get the terrible flashback with the car crash and Miles tries to save like both Rachel and Clayton. But he's only able to like get Rachel out and then so they get like rescued by like a boat on the river.
And Rachel was like telling him to save the baby because for some reason
he was trying.
I don't understand why she couldn't get her own seatbelt off.
I don't know. That's like a thing. That's definitely a thing.
It gets stuck.
Like, so it like
because seatbelts specifically have the emergency release button. That's why they have the like easy thing. It's specifically for that reason, which is why it's extra dumb that car seats don't have it. According to Mr. Geisbrecht, car seat accident expert, who I read an article by him about like interviewing.
But yeah, so Rachel basically blames Miles, like even though like it's very well established that there was really nothing Miles could have done. Like he couldn't get it open again because consumer protection agencies don't care about child safety apparently. And Tate and Miles have trauma sex after Miles starts to cry and he says Rachel's name while they're having sex.
Fuck.
And she's like, I'm done. She's like, what the fuck? And we get this because there's a parallel scene right after this. But before, I just want to say, like, at this point, I was like, okay, I still think he needs therapy, but I also recognize that there are like some things that like you're never going to be able to like fully stop mourning. And like the death of a child is definitely one of them.
Yeah. It was just a really strong emotional impact. Yeah. Because I was not.
It was heavy.
It was like really hard. Yeah.
But yeah, there's immediately a sex scene, the last sex scene between Rachel and Miles, like after Clayton has died, and they have breakup sex.
And he's like, that's what we've been doing, Tate. Fucking. I made that clear from day one. I'm like, no, you fucking haven't. But he like really sticks to the line. Yeah. And then she leaves.
And they both say, Tate is like, I'm done. And she's like, just finish. And then when Rachel and Miles have their breakup sex, Rachel's also like just finished. So you have that parallel. And they break up. And then Rachel writes him like a Dear John letter. And then like her and Lisa move back to Phoenix. And he's like, the ugly love like wasn't worth it. And I was like, roll credits. Like there it is. There's the title. Ugly love. And this is when Miles is like, I'm never going to love again. It's not worth it.
And he's like, I feel bad for hurting Tate, but it's hard to feel bad for her because she doesn't know pain. Which like, yes.
On one hand,
it's
like
not
I understand,
the same.
but also you're being a dick.
Right. Yeah, you don't get to just like, you don't get absolution for hurting other people just because something much worse has happened to you.
Right. Yeah, so they break up and now we get current day Miles perspective. No longer are we in flashbacks because we're all caught up, baby.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want to love her, but I can't. And then Ian calls Miles out for being a coward. And he does the whole thing where he's like, if you could forget everything, would you, or whatever. And then Corbin comes in and punches Miles in the face. And he's like, you deserve that, TBH. I'm going to head out now. Very random.
No, it's that. No. Corbin punch. No. You're saying out of order. Ian gives him the talk, and Ian's like, what you really need to do is you need to go find Rachel and find out how she's been doing because you're never going to forgive yourself until you know like how she's doing.
No. Cap says that.
Are you sure?
I
Corbin
did say it out of order. I
end.
did say it out of order. So I'm sorry. So
you don't see that on scene anyway. On screen.
So what happens is Tate's moving out. Then they have the cry and the trauma sex. And then Tate says goodbye to him the next day. And then Ian is like, you're a coward. And then Corbin punches Miles. And then Ian gives Miles the heart to heart.
No.
Yes.
Corbin punches him at the end once he comes back and is asking where Tate lives.
No. We don't get
punch
that.
him twice?
No.
He just off screen.
He already has a black eye.
No, it's because he went and asked him. No, we don't.
No, it's not.
No. He just tells Tate, I had to beg Corbin to tell me where you moved. It doesn't matter. The relevant part is that he's had the heart to heart and now he's off to Arizona.
No, but he talks to Cap. He talks to Ian and then he talks to Cap. And we find out that Cap has known Miles all his life. Because I guess Miles has lived in this apartment building his whole life. Cap used to be a maintenance man at like multiple apartment buildings. And one of them was Miles' dad. So Miles rolls on over to Phoenix and knocks on Rachel's door. And now we get Rachel POV.
And I knew this was coming because the audiobook has 3 narrators. And this is also why I knew that like Rachel probably didn't die also because there's 2 girls. And I was like, all right, well, as soon as we got the Rachel, I was like, all right, we're hearing from Rachel. Rachel's like, oh my gosh, it's Miles. And Rachel is happily married
to someone named Brad.
Yeah.
Brad and Chad. Why?
And Rachel's like, oh my God, I can't believe, like, I feel so bad that Miles has been basically feeling super guilty this whole time, even though I moved on. And she's like, it wasn't fair of me to blame you. Like, you also lost the child and like, it wasn't your fault. And then she shows him her new daughter, Claire, which was going to be their alternate name for Clayton because she was going to pick the girl name and then he picked the boy name as like a surprise. And Claire is her grandmother. So
yeah.
And he's like, Claire looks just like her brother.
Yeah. They cry a lot, but then they get closure and like accept the pain. Still not as good as therapy, but I'll accept it. And then Tate is coming home and Miles is at her door and he's been waiting there for 6 hours. Mm-hmm. And so Miles comes in and she's like, Tate is basically just like, what the fuck do you want? Like, you have hurt me enough. But she's also been pining after him this whole time.
It's that good love healing trauma.
Yeah. So then Miles tells Tate about Clayton. He doesn't tell her everything. He's like, I had a son. The day that we met would have been his 6th birthday. I will tell you everything. Like, I can't tell you everything right now, but I will. Which I appreciated because like, I appreciated the fact that Colleen Hoover was like, listen, like he's beginning to heal, but he's nowhere near like close enough to be able to tell someone like fully what happened to be able to talk about it. And I feel like that's so often like, they're like, well, I've been healed by love. And now I can like talk about all my things without like, you know, I can talk about it freely. And that's not, he's like, this is why I'm like this. I'm working on it actively. I care about you. I want to be with you. I'm willing to be open.
That's something he talked about with Rachel too. Like Rachel was like, yeah, I used to be like you. Like every day was like, you know, pain. But then now the pain is just like, now it's like the good stuff is the foreground and the pain is just the background.
Yeah.
Versus the other way around.
After she met Brad. Neither of them go to therapy. Both of them heal through love, which whatever. So then we get an epilogue.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
This is just the end of the book. Is
Yes.
he shows up. Oh yeah, okay. They take Cap. Cap has never been in a plane. Cap also brings her juice in a to-go cup. I enjoyed that.
Yes. Excellent.
Yeah. So they take Cap up in a plane for the first time because he's never, despite being a captain, he has never flown.
And he shows her the sunrise.
Oh yeah.
Because the first they talked about at Thanksgiving how like she's like, wow, it must be so cool to see the sunrise from up there. And Corbin is like, I never look at it. And Miles is like, you know, being reticent because he's emotionally stunted at this point. But then he shows her the sunrise and he's like, it is like amazing.
Yeah.
And,
and that's another one of those things that made me be like, you've grown up, your dad was a pilot, like how have you never thought of this before? And also if you're so like interested, you're so captivated by it, why didn't you become a pilot too? Like, come on.
I mean, she's not that captive. She's like, it must be just like cool.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, maybe the fact
she's not like, oh my god, I've always wanted to see the sunrise from a plane.
Yeah,
like she's definitely seen a fucking sunrise from a plane. Like, I don't know. Whatever.
So they take him up and then they drop him off and go somewhere else. I don't know where they go, but he proposes.
They're just hanging out. Well, first he fakes her out. He pulls out like a ring box, but it's just a key to his apartment. He's like, I want you to move in. But then he pulls out the real ring and he's like, will you marry me? And I'm like, you little shit.
I know.
But I'm like, in a good way. Like this one's in a good way. The other times it wasn't in a good way, but this one is in a good way.
Yeah. And then we cut to like how many years later? Like 5 years later, 5 years later.
Like 3 years later. So
the true epilogue.
Married.
Yeah.
They're married. They didn't plan on getting pregnant, but they're like, if it happens, it happens. Whatever. And he is holding his daughter. And they named her Sam after Cap, whose real name is Samuel.
Oh.
Yeah. And yeah, he holds her in his arms and he's like very scared at first because he's like, I don't know whether, you know, this is gonna trigger something in me. But then he just like loves her and it's very cute and it brings him peace and it's very heartwarming. Mm-hmm. Goddamn, Colleen Hoover.
I know. I was shocked. Because I have so many notes on this where I'm just like, there's no way. There's no way this is pulling through.
You turned to me. You started the book and you were like, wow, I really like this book. And then like 3 hours later, you came to me and you're like, I shouldn't have said that to you. Like I'm so mad at Miles. I don't know how she's going to turn this around. Yeah. And then
like 3 hours after
turned it around. God damn it. Colleen Hoover. What is this wizardry?
She just hoovered it all up.
She like took all my emotional trauma and she just
hoovered it up.
Yep. Good job. So, you know what time it is.
Meow, meow.
What do we think?
I think it's low. I don't know. I did not get any cat vibes. Only
I didn't get animal vibes either.
No, not at all.
From either
Because
Miles
again,
or
it was
Tate.
just so...
It was so realistic.
It was so true. It's like I need a little bit of like cartoonity in my... You know, and I don't need like I enjoyed this book
I don't
a lot,
need it.
Like,
obviously, this worked. Yeah,
right. But like I usually expect a little more cartoonity.
Yeah. No, I didn't get animal vibes from either of them for whatever reason. I don't know why. I just said that, and an image of a turtle,
sentient potato,
and a koala came into my mind.
Who's who?
I'm not really sure because I think you can make arguments for both. Because like Miles could be a turtle because he's like, you know, constantly is like retreating into his shell. He has a hard exterior,
and Tate's like clinging on.
Tate, yeah, but then also like koalas can be vicious. You know what I mean? Like, don't go fucking near a koala. Like they can scratch your eyes out for sure. So like that could also, you could make the argument that Miles could be a koala.
They enjoy niche food like eucalyptus and or we might say orange juice.
Orange juice is not a niche food.
But like, is it? I don't know. I get so many mixed signals from orange juice.
Most people, a poll. We'll do a poll.
I would guess, yeah. Most people only drink orange juice and like mimosas. And that doesn't count. That's not the same as like a straight up glass of OJ regularly. You tell me that you like can't drink citrus.
No. Allow me to clarify. It gives me the shits. I shouldn't drink it.
I just like literally grew up thinking of it as like as much as like a bowl of cereal was just like that's what you eat. It's like orange juice. That's what you drink.
I feel like orange juice is a pretty common.
And then I go years thinking I was wrong, and then in comes Colleen Hoover.
Anyway, yeah. So not really no cats.
I'd say Corbin. Book. Corbin's like the closest to being a cat in this book.
But I feel like he's like a German Shepherd.
Maybe.
You
He's
know, I
like
feel
a
like he's more
wannabe. He's like a
dog.
wannabe. He's like a cat that like thinks it's a
No,
German
he's a
Shepherd.
Pomeranian.
Yeah.
That's what he's like, a Chihuahua. Yeah. Corbin's a Chihuahua,
Maybe.
but not
Maybe.
a cat. I just feel like he's too oblivious to be a cat.
Yeah. The whole book was very tense, and I feel like cats do well in tense situations. So what you do, do what you want with that.
I don't know about that. I feel like cats just leave tense situations.
Yeah, but imagine like a cat like walking on like a tightrope or something. Like
I don't think that's tense for the cat.
Sure, but it's tense for everyone else.
I think that's just like a regular day's work for the cat.
Yeah, I guess so. All right.
Yeah.
3,
1, 2, 3,
1,
2.
Okay, 1.5.
1. No, I'm adjusting mine to
changing.
1. Yeah, because I'm thinking about the fact that we gave. What else did we give a 1? We gave Royal Holiday a 1.
Did we?
I'm pretty sure we gave something a 1.
Maybe
it was Royal Holiday.
No, not Destiny's
No,
Thunder.
Destiny's Thunder we gave a 2 because Billy was fierce.
Yeah. So I think it would have been a 1 otherwise.
Yeah. But we gave Royal Holiday a 1, and I can in good conscience. Like, if anything, Royal Holiday is slightly more cat-like.
Because at least there were animals.
This book.
Like there were horses.
Yeah. It's slightly more cat. Yeah, there wasn't a single animal in this book.
No.
Yeah. Royal Holiday is slightly more cat-like, but not enough to bring it to a 2. So I can't give this a 2 if I gave Royal Holiday a 1.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Okay. Where can they find us, Rachel?
They can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at We Read It One Night, or on Twitter at We Read It Podcast, or you can email us at wereaditonenight@gmail.com.
Also, leave us a rate and review wherever you listen, and give us a follow and or subscribe. Your review can literally just be like, Godspeed, comrades.
Yes.
That's it. Like,
you or like a cat emoji. Like, that's fine.
Just like meow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Meow meow.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Can we get
We're not
meow
we are not picky. We are not,
Yeah.
We don't demand much.
No.
We are simple folk.
Like the cats. All we require is...
I don't know. Cats demand, I feel like. They both demand everything and demand nothing.
Anyway, write to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Because the patent has been around for 10 years, and yet, to my knowledge, there's still no seats on the market. So
Foolish.
I don't know. Alternatively, write to the patent holder if you got some like business hookups, like get that manufacturing started.
Can we get them on Shark Tank, perchance?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that could be an opportunity.
I mean, that's legitimate. Like, listen, I recently learned about induction stoves, right? You told me about that.
I taught you about that.
Yeah, you told me about that. Yeah, and I never heard of it. But if you don't know, it's basically these like magic stoves that immediately like the heat goes from like hot magnets to like it becomes completely not hot right as soon as you turn it off. So I feel like that's like that. I was thinking like that's going to be the kind of safety innovation that like it's going to take, they're available, but it's going to take like years for people to adopt them. But in like 30 years, it's going to be like seatbelts. People are going to be like, wow, I can't believe those idiots 30 years ago were having these dangerous ass stoves instead of like our safe stoves. But now that I heard about this car seat thing, I'm like, this seems like it has even more potential. Like, this seems like even more of a no brainer.
Okay. Godspeed, comrades.
Godspeed.